If you change your mind, you change your life. And Uranus in Gemini is coming in like a lightning bolt over the course of 2025 to 2033 to electrify your mind, to shake up your mental processes, to revolutionize your communication. All of us, actually. Over the course of this transit, we can expect rapid developments around transportation, around social media, around communication altogether. We can also experience shakeups and rebellions around these particular arenas. We can see shakeups around news, media, information, where we receive it. The very nature of Uranus is that it innovates, it shakes things up, it disrupts. And over the course of this transit, while it coincides with Pluto in Aquarius, we are going to see a genuine technological renaissance. So there are inventions that are going to be developed at this time, or even hit the market at this time, or be normalized at this time, that are going to shake up fundamentally how we think, how we communicate, how we get from place to place. But the nature of Uranus is that it can move at a lightning speed. So quick that there's not always those barriers in place around, whoa, whoa, whoa. Is this a good idea? Is this good for our brains? Is this good for society? And when it comes to you and you navigating this transit, outside of what we will see collectively that we will absolutely dive into, with Uranus and Gemini, this is an opportunity to shake up how you think, how you view circumstances, things, and your life altogether. This is a time to shake up the mental landscape that you exist within. Those who are going to create a difference during this time, those who are going to make an impact, those who are going to be a leader or be able to champion new ways of doing things and new ways of gathering people together in order to vocalize your perspective and your ideas. The individuals who will thrive at this time are the individuals who are willing to think outside of the box, the individuals who are willing to view things from a different perspective. Important to note, Gemini is the twins. So where it is that you can detach, it's an air sign, in order to view things from a different angle. Those are the individuals who are going to shake things up. Those are the individuals who are going to make a difference. Those are the individuals whose voices we are going to be plugged into at this time. So within this video, we will talk about everything you need to know about Uranus and Gemini for the next 8-ish years. We will talk about the collective significations that we can experience at this time. We will talk about past inventions and events that have been documented while Uranus was in Gemini. We will talk about which signs will be the most shaken up with Uranus entering Gemini. And then we will take it into a sign-by-sign, house-by-house analysis where we break down what sector of your life is being revolutionized, is being radicalized, where it is that you are being challenged to lead us into novelty, where you are being challenged to disrupt how it is that you've been doing things, where you are being challenged to breathe in more novelty into your experience. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take it into Uranus and Gemini 2025 to 2033. Speak your spark. Uranus will enter the mutable air sign Gemini on July 7th, 2025, where it will remain, giving us a brief foreshadow of what the Uranus and Gemini themes will be at large until November 8th, 2025, at which point Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus, closing out a story that's been ongoing since 2018 until April 2026, at which point the Uranus in Gemini era officially kicks off until May 2023. And before we break this down individually, what you can expect within your life to change, disrupt, be shaken up, let's analyze how this may show up collectively, because Uranus as a planet is very much associated with collective topics. It's a planet around humanity. It's a planet around rebellion, revolution, disruption. And so we, as human beings, are going to experience a lot of shakeups around Gemini themes over the course of the next 8 years. So let's analyze where we may see this impact humanity. We'll begin with communication and the mind. Uranus in Gemini is going to be a time in which we are going to experience massive shifts mentally and how it is that we communicate. Let's break down a couple of ways that this can show up. With Uranus in Gemini, I would not be surprised over the course of the next 8-ish years, we start to see differences within our mind, unlocking new components or new abilities of the human mind, or being able to free up tasks that may be a bit monotonous or mindless in order to free up more mental space for projects that are more intriguing or solving problems that are more helpful to humanity at large. That is my take from the optimistic Pisces heart that I have, is that genuinely this is a time in which we're able to unlock more out of our brains. But my concern, especially with this transit happening at the same time as Pluto in Aquarius, a transit that has been very much associated and linked with artificial intelligence, I'm curious if we are going to see more studies, more conversations around our own mental decline as humanity. If we lean upon artificial intelligence to such a degree that we start to see shifts within our mental processes, within our cognitive resources, within our problem solving. I would be intrigued to see over this next period if there are shakeups around tests, around early schooling can be Gemini-like themes. And with Uranus and Gemini, maybe these technologies will be integrated in a way where our brains are still being challenged. But I also would not be surprised at this time if we start to see more studies that really cement what these technologies are doing to our brains and also what they are doing to our communication. Uranus will be in Gemini, Pluto will be in Aquarius. These are two air signs, incredibly intelligent. We're going to see all sorts of scientific developments. We're going to see all sorts of medical developments. I'm sure all sorts of technological inventions. We'll get into the positive sides of this, but I do want to highlight air is a bit detached. Even though it's of the people, it is a bit detached. It's very much associated with technology. And when we think about Gemini around how we communicate, I think we're going to witness within the next 8 years is people utilizing technology more and more in order to communicate, which of course, social media is already huge. What I'm referring to is more people utilizing AI in their interpersonal communication, like using artificial intelligence in order to game hitting on people or in order to send the perfect email or develop the perfect brand voice. I just wouldn't be shocked if there's even like certain prompts that show up around like, you should call your grandma this week, or like, you should text your girlfriend good morning. Again, like turning us into technology, turning us into robots and almost like gamifying and making social interaction more technological. Again, I'm not here to commentate on the ethics of this. I'm just calling it like I see it, astrologically. I think there's going to be a removal of the human component within communication. It would not be surprising to me if it starts to become more and more normal to check with artificial intelligence before replying to someone or before you post something online, which does take out the human element of it. Again, with Uranus and Gemini, it is going to integrate what has been already started with Pluto and Aquarius. So we might see more seamless ways that AI weaves into social media. So even auto-generated captions or insights around this could succeed online or something like this, which could potentially be helpful. But again, it removes that human element of communication, of saying, this is who I am and this is what I have to say. And bear with me because this is a very strange, weird thought, but Uranus is a very strange, weird planet. I'm curious if throughout this time we are going to see that not only are we training AI, or we are programming AI by sharing information to it and kind of teaching it how to talk to us. I'm curious if while Uranus is in Gemini, we're going to recognize in big and small ways how AI is training us or programming us or fundamentally shifting how our brain operates. Again, with Uranus and Gemini, people who know how to feed information to AI or know how to communicate it or leverage it can absolutely have certain gains or developments at this time. But I just would not be surprised if we start to see the ways that AI is shaping and fundamentally morphing our brains, our comprehension, how it is that we read, process information, how it is that we talk to one another. And of course, this has massive implications for schooling. Gemini does govern early schooling. Some of those consequences we're already seeing. I think with Uranus and Gemini, there's going to be shakeups around writing, shakeups around reading, shakeups around testing and certification. I think education needs to evolve in a way that still challenges individuals, even though I would imagine a lot of students are leveraging artificial intelligence, like ways that the testing can evolve, and that these individuals are still being challenged, that their minds are being challenged, that we're not just outsourcing our minds to technology. I am of the belief, optimistic Pisces heart, I am of the belief that AI can be utilized in a way that helps unlock more of our brain, automating monotonous tasks or things that are mindless for us to solve other problems that AI cannot solve, or at least put our mental energy towards topics that intrigue us. But I have to acknowledge the shadow side of this particular energy. I also think there's going to be a lot of shakeups around social media at large. With Uranus in Gemini, I think there can be rebellion around social media, around how information is disseminated, especially as it relates to feeling censored. I would not be shocked if there are other platforms that pop up in order to allow more expressive communication without feeling censored. There could be platforms that gain a lot of momentum, and then just as quick as they shot up, everybody moves on to something else. Like, the energy of Uranus is volatile. Like, absolutely, we can expect terms and conditions shifts and different tools, maybe even different platforms that start suddenly and maybe even drop off just as suddenly. But I'm also curious if society's perspective around social media is going to shift quite a bit. In terms of the new generations, it'll be interesting to see their approach to social media, because something about generations is that typically the generation that comes after, there is an energy of rebelling what the generation before was all about. In a sense, like, there is an energy around feeling like, oh, that's so like corny, that's so lame, that's so outdated. So I wonder if there will be a theme within the next 8 years of younger generations thinking it's kind of like lame to share everything online, or like rebelling on how social media is used. Or there could be all sorts of different slang, different mottos, different internet speak really making its way into the space. And when we think of the internet and just its development, there's things that we've learned as humans with time. You know, not everybody knew the dangers of the internet. And so, like, for me, when I was younger, a lot of my friends would be on like those sketchy video sites. What were those called? Like Omegle and stuff, talking with strangers and like aiming random people. You know, with time, we learned more that the internet can be a dangerous place. We learned about, you know, catfishing on the internet. There's scams that are on the internet. Of course, the internet can be a place of a lot of good, of banding people together, of disseminating information. That's going to be key with Uranus and Gemini. But I think every generation since we have the internet has strived to do better, in a sense. You know, recently we've seen more and more people not want to post their kids online. Again, something that was considered completely innocuous like 10 years ago, and is completely innocuous if you're not a weirdo. But once there's that awareness or that mental opening around where that sort of content could go, now there is a shift to more and more people not wanting to post their kids online if they do have like an internet presence. Like, I'm just curious if over the next 8 years, there's going to be certain shifts around how we engage with these platforms around, okay, now that we have this information, now we know this. And like I said, I do feel that there's going to be studies and research, because Uranus is a planet that is associated with science and technology. I think there's going to be more studies on how social media is warping our brains, on how artificial intelligence is warping our brains. Again, my hope is that it unlocks our brains. And of course, there I'm on social media. I understand what a powerful tool that it can be. But I think with Uranus and Gemini, it's going to be important that we use these technologies and do not allow these technologies to use us. And speaking of internet and internet safety, I would just say with Uranus and Gemini, this can be a time of more hackers or people able to steal information. I would say this would be an important time to be conscious of what information that you put out there. I'm curious what this and Pluto and Aquarius means as it relates to big data. I think a lot of technologies are really going to intimately get to know us and know how our brain works. And the implications of that could go far and wide. I also just wonder, bringing back to the human element, if a human is able to hack into informational databases in order to extract a lot of information about a lot of people. That's also a question that I have about this transit. With Uranus and Gemini, I do think social media channels are going to be even more emphasized as a platform to speak out, to rebel, to gather and join forces with other like-minded individuals. But with this happening and Pluto and Aquarius, I think as that continues to build, I think the pressure in order to inhibit those voices is going to build as well. As well as we could see a lot of rebellion showing up within news and media altogether. I think we're going to see similar things in regards to that. I think it's going to be less centralized around this is where you receive your news. This is where you receive your information. I think with Uranus and Gemini, there's a lot of rebellion that's showing up around information, who has it, how it is being disseminated, how it is being put out there into the world. And I also want to bring up transportation, because that's another arena of life that can go through some massive changes over the next 8 years. I found it fascinating within my research that last time Uranus was in Gemini in the 40s, test crash dummies were invented. And that's an invention that really revolutionized maybe not necessarily how we get from place to place, but ensuring that transportation was safer, because now there was a way to test how safe various vehicles were in the event of a crash. And so, yes, we can experience shakeups around cars at this time. Absolutely. More and more self-driving cars, that becoming more of a norm. Different sort of cars that hit the market. Shakeups around the automobile industry and themes around that, things that are up and down. Wouldn't be shocked if it even impacts gas prices or something like this. You know, when I was younger, I always thought, when I thought of the future, I thought we would have flying cars. So maybe this is the time we finally have flying cars or some sort of different vehicle that hits the market, a different sort of way of getting from point A to point B, or just changes around transportation altogether. Again, I don't know if it'll go quite this far, but I would also be curious to see if there are certain scientific developments at this time that point us in direction of getting closer and closer towards teleportation or speeding up transportation or something like this. But really, all sorts of shifts can come to short-term travel altogether. And we're going to see a lot of inventions at this time, many of which may be quite wacky. In doing research for this video, I was delighted to know that the last time that Uranus was in Gemini, the Slinky was invented and Silly Putty was invented, if you are familiar with those toys. And the reason that that just delighted my astrologer heart is because Gemini is a sign that governs the hands. So I just wouldn't be shocked if over the course of the next 8 years, there's going to be new things that are developed to keep people's hands busy, or just even certain toys that utilize the hands or something like this. And on the note of Silly Putty, when I was researching how Silly Putty came to be last time Uranus was in Gemini, keep in mind a lot of major inventions that change the ways that we navigate day-to-day reality were invented, not just, Silly Putty. It's a little silly. But I did land upon a theme when I was researching Silly Putty that started to present a certain pattern around the inventions that came out last time Uranus was in Gemini. And that is that it was discovered on accident. It took a perspective shift. So to communicate what I mean, Silly Putty was initially developed to be a synthetic rubber replacement for the US War Production Board. And they were unimpressed and they had no use for it, but a toy maker saw its potential and it became what we know of as Silly Putty. And that pattern is alive within a lot of the inventions that came out with Uranus and Gemini, in that they kind of stumbled upon it on accident, or at least it took a brand new set of eyes, or again, seeing things from a different perspective in order to see the viability and the potential within it. Because if you were to just view it as this is a rubber substitute and that's all that it is, and it was denied of its intended use, there could have been an abandoning of that development. But it took someone to view it from a different perspective around, if it's not this, what if it could be this? And seeing it through fresh eyes. That's why I'm saying Uranus and Gemini, the individuals who are going to revolutionize, individuals who are going to disrupt, are individuals who are creative enough to view things from a different way, from a different perspective, to breathe in the spirit of inventiveness. As another example, kitty litter was invented on accident, or just something that was stumbled upon. It began when Edward Lowe, who was in the business of selling materials such as clay, sawdust, sand, had a neighbor who was looking for something for her cat. And he just gave her some of the clay granules from his business. And then they stumbled upon kitty litter. Again, the materials that he always had, but put towards a different use, viewed in a different perspective. The microwave was developed last time Uranus was in Gemini, not as a focused effort to try to find a way to pop popcorn and to heat food. No, the microwave was developed when Percy Spencer was experimenting with radar technology. Radar also became a thing last time Uranus was in Gemini, and stumbled upon the fact that this device could indeed heat food. Not the intended aim, but a happy accident viewed from a different perspective, or even like solving a different problem. So throughout the course of the next 8 years, there might be certain inventions that solve a different problem than the one that was intended. And that takes somebody viewing something in a different way in order to find the viability or the innovation of the particular invention. And now when we think of the last time Uranus was in Gemini, which was 1941 to 1949, this saw a lot of shifts around communication. The color television was developed at this time. It was not accessible to purchase for the public until the 50s, but 40s saw a lot of the development of that. Radar technology, as I highlighted, was developed at this time. Dialysis machines were developed at this time. Things that really impacted humanity beyond just, Silly Putty and Slinkies, although I was delighted to see that those were invented last time Uranus was in Gemini. And you may have noticed, of course, that a lot of these developments were invented as a response to the war, or in an effort to revolutionize military programs and things like this. And so this brings me into another component of Uranus in Gemini. Uranus was last in Gemini 1941 to 1949, which does coincide with World War II. The time before that, Uranus was in Gemini was 1861-ish, the US Civil War. The United States was developed with Uranus and Gemini. If we take it back to the prior Uranus and Gemini transit, it's timed with the Revolutionary War. And so Uranus in Gemini is a significant transit as it relates to combat tension, particularly as it relates to the US. And I do want to highlight, I talked about this in my Neptune in Aries video, also Pluto in Aquarius. And again, this is not information that I want to deliver. This is not information that I want to see within the cosmos, but it is just an unfortunate component of what we see with this transit, because astrology really comes down to pattern recognition, around just recognizing certain patterns. And I want to just highlight, just to zoom in particularly on the US, I will just say the US is a Sagittarius rising. So at the time of the US essentially identifying itself or being formed, it had Uranus on the descendant. And within a country chart, the descendant, the seventh house, that governs essentially other countries or open enemies, so to speak. And so when Uranus, the planet of shakeups and rebellion, enters into the US's seventh house or gets close to that descendant, or again, it's the US's Uranus return, it tends to be a time of volatility around other countries. And my deepest hope is that it does not go to where it's gone in the past. I think the purpose developing as humanity is to strive to always do better than what came before. And I think it's going to be important for all of us to hold the vision of us all living in peace and us deciding to do things differently, to break patterns, to see the world differently, to see through any sort of propaganda, to see through any sort of lies. I go into this within the Neptune in Aries video. Again, I think if there is tension, if there is conflict, I think with Uranus and Gemini, it's going to require innovation and how it is that information is disseminated or put out there. Social media and firsthand reporting or witnessing can be something that is an agent of change or of revolution or of rebellion altogether. And the most positive way that this transit can show up is really individuals working together, banding together, rebelling together, protesting together, debating together. Like, I hope that this is a transit that humans come together, that they advocate on behalf of their neighbors or their community or something like this during this time. And I really think what's going to be key to navigate this transit is really grabbing hold of the power of your mind. Uranus can be a very electric, buzzy energy, and Gemini is the mind. So this can be a time that is just brimming with new ideas and a lot of stimulation. And I think it's going to be important moving into the season to really chisel focus. Like, this could be a time that feeling scattered or all over the place is even more intensified. And with Uranus and Gemini, it can be quite nervous, especially if there is like a lot of just mainlining information or news or other people's perspectives. I think with this transit here and it happening concurrently for most of its transit with Saturn in Aries and Neptune in Aries, I think it's going to be important to, yes, listen to other voices and view things from a different perspective and share your voice, right? Even if it's weird, you've got permission to be peculiar, truly, with Uranus and Gemini. So share your voice. Even if it's weird, speak out if something seems different. You've got a mind, use it. You've got a voice, use it. That's going to be essential with Uranus and Gemini. And in order to step into that component of this, it's going to be important to ground your energy, to come back to your body, because it's a lot of really mental, buzzy energy. And if you're so distracted taking in everybody else's viewpoint and perspective or learning all of this information, it could add to feeling more anxious or feeling all over the place or feeling scattered or having all this information. And it's like, well, now what do I do with it? Like, where do I put it? And so with Uranus and Gemini, it's going to be important to see wherever it is that you can really ground down into the body, because our minds are going haywire at this time. There could be like downloads, new ideas, revolutionary books that come out at this time, or even different ways that we consume media. We could have certain shakeups around the podcast industry. We can have certain shakeups around the book industry. Like, there's definitely going to be a lot of shifts around information. I think a lot of individuals are going to conceptualize some really genius ideas, genius solutions, but to grab hold of the genius of your mind, because Uranus is genius archetype, it's going to be important to tame some of this nervous, buzzy energy. It could be kind of flighty. It could be kind of all over the place. It could be around, oh, I got this idea, but then squirrel, and now I'm distracted. And so I mentioned that it happens concurrently for most of its transit with Saturn, Neptune, Aries, because Aries is around self. So it's around, yes, brainstorming with others, working together with others, but coming back into self and into your own body in order to ground these sort of ideas. There's a lot of energy around conversations and ideas, and it's going to be important, especially with the next essentially generation of leaders, to have individuals who not only conceptualize the ideas, but implement them. And to do that, there needs to be some training or focus of your mind so that you're not scattered, so that you're not distracted, so that you're not in analysis paralysis, or that you're not so overwhelmed with information that it's like, okay, well, what do I do with all of this? So this is really going to be a transit for you to awaken your inner genius, see things differently. And this is really going to be a transit where it's important to awaken your inner genius. It's going to be important to train your mind. Train your mind. Don't allow technology to train your mind. Train your mind. Recognize your mind is yours. This is going to be a transit in which we are even more resistant to being told what to think or what we need to say. This is going to be a transit in which there's going to be a rebellion if any people feel like they have to be a mouthpiece and say something that they do not stand by. With Uranus and Gemini, it's like, this is my mind, this is my voice. I'm going to speak up how I view things, or I'm going to communicate in the way that's right for me. I am not your mouthpiece. My voice is not available for sale. And for you to leverage this transit and whatever impact you want to make over the next 8 years for however it is that you want to revolutionize humanity, where it is that you want to inspire, where it is that you want to uplift, where it is that you want to make a difference, be willing to think outside of the box, be willing to communicate ideas that are a little strange or a little eccentric. Be willing to own that your mind is yours and your voice is yours. And this transit happening at the same time as Saturn and Neptune in Aries is a reminder that regardless, people are going to have a problem with you. You know, Saturn and Neptune in Aries, there's a tension in the air within humanity right now. A lot of people are wanting to fight. And maybe not physically, but like Uranus and Gemini, you know, battle with words. But a lot of people, it's like, whether you're on social media or it's like within the workplace, it's like when there's disagreements, it presents them an opportunity to utilize you as a punching bag because there's so much frustration building within the collective right now just because of so much of what's happening that a lot of people are looking for outlets to funnel their frustration or their anger towards. And if you vocalize an opinion or an idea that's different than yours, you may absolutely be somebody else's punching bag or target where somebody directs misguided aggression towards you. And I'm not saying that that's ever appropriate, but I'm saying that we are moving into a time where it's going to be important to have the courage to be disliked. It's going to be important to have the courage to own that you see things differently. It's going to be important to embody and empower your voice and speak your truth, even if your voice shakes, knowing that regardless, whoever it is that you are, whatever it is that you think, you're going to make somebody mad. You just are. And speaking your truth, unfortunately, in times such as this, does make you open to other people's attacks. So there's not that human component. Like I said, I think Uranus and Gemini, Pluto and Aquarius, it's giving very detached in a sense and kind of removing the human element of it around, this is my opinion, this is my perspective, I'm willing to hear you out on yours. Maybe we can both walk away from this conversation having learned something new. And with Uranus and Gemini, there's going to be just a rebellion around, I'm going to say how I view things. I'm going to speak up in how I see things. And I think it's going to be important to not just speak, but also listen. This transit happening at the same time with Pluto and Aquarius, my concern is that it's going to amplify and continue this polarization around you either think 100% this or 100% that, and removing the nuance of conversation, removing the nuance of learning from other humans. And so with Uranus and Gemini, it's important to be open to different perspectives. Again, your mind is your own. Your truth is your own. Own that, okay? Own that. But with Uranus and Gemini, there can be an energy around being open to having your mind changed or being open to converse, to share, to discuss in an effort to create genuine change or to move in a new direction with Uranus and Gemini. So when it comes to collectively, I want you to integrate this information not in a fear-based way. Again, with Uranus and Gemini, leverage the power of your mind. You can hold two things at once. Gemini is the twins, it governs the hand. So on one hand, some of these themes can be incredibly scary, incredibly terrifying. But you can acknowledge on the other hand that it doesn't do any good to descend into panic. You can acknowledge on one hand the technology that will be developed over the next 8 years could be used for nefarious purposes, or you could hold on the other hand that there can be certain developments that fundamentally shift and improve human life, how it is that we communicate, how it is that we transport, how it is that we connect, how it is that we work together. And it's going to be important to really harness the power of your mind, to be open to innovative, new ideas, ahas, light bulb moments. It's important not to get too associated with the problem because we don't find the solution when we are in the problem. And Uranus and Gemini and your success throughout this transit is going to hinge upon your ability to step outside of it and view it from another perspective. Around this fails as, a rubber substitute, but it could be a great toy, or around this is a problem that we're in, but what's a solution that we can find? This is going to be important with Uranus and Gemini. You know what they say about lightning? It doesn't strike in the same place twice. And this is the nudge with Uranus and Gemini to answer those calls for revolutionary ideas and innovative breakthroughs and ideas that disrupt your life and even humanity's life altogether. But it's important to know, much like lightning, it's not always the most predictable planet or influence, and there definitely is a spectrum. On the lighter side, Uranus energy can be innovative. It can be non-conventional. It can be owning our eccentricities, owning our weirdness, even bringing about random, wacky, unexpected events into our life. On the shadow side of Uranus, this can be an incredibly erratic energy. This could be a restless energy. This could be an unstable energy. This can bring unexpected, not pleasant developments into your world. Just living your life and all of a sudden lightning strikes. Who would have thought? And like I said, lightning doesn't strike in the same place twice. And so Uranus energy, well, we will have a sense of the major themes that will present themselves throughout the next 8 years. It's important to know that when it comes to Uranus, it's important to expect the unexpected. Know that there are some Uranian shockwaves moving into these territories of your life. And while you can deeply understand what that transit can bring, there's probably going to be 1 or 2 ways that it surfaces that you're like, that is not what I was expecting from my Uranus transit. That's the very nature of Uranus, is that it is the planet of the unexpected and the unpredictable. But some of us are going to experience more of a Uranian influence than others. We all have a Uranus story, but for some of us, it's a bit more softer. It's a bit more subtle. And for others, it's a bit more in your face. It's a bit more like a lightning bolt. And so those who will experience the most intense Uranus story will be those who have prominent Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces within their chart. I would put increased emphasis if it is your personal planets. So if you are a Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, or Mars, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces. That means throughout the course of the next 8 years, you will experience a harsh Uranus transit, bringing about these themes of spontaneity, innovation, disruption in a very real way. Now, outside of the planets, also angles. So it's going to bring shockwaves to the planets and the angles. So if you are a Gemini rising, a Virgo rising, a Sagittarius rising, or a Pisces rising, this is going to be a more prominent influence for you over the next 8 years. I would also add in if you notice that your IC or your midheaven is in one of those signs. And again, it's not saying it's going to be 8 years of chaos and constant ups and downs. It's just saying at some point in time from 2025 to 2033, you will have Uranus harshly aspect one of your planets or angles if you have a significant mutable presence there, which again, it shows up on a spectrum. Some individuals are going to have major disruptions. Their lives are going to change quite a bit. And for others, it just could be this energy around wanting to break away from what is outdated, wanting to be your own person, wanting to really step into your authenticity. So to get more clues and more information around the sectors of life that are subject to the Uranian shockwaves of unpredictability, we will shift into our sign-by-sign, house-by-house analysis. So in navigating the rest of the video, there are two options. The first, if you are newer to astrology or you utilize whole sign house system. For this, you will find your forecast based on your rising sign. That will be the most accurate look at your Uranus story, but also your sun sign. So let's say I'm a Libra sun, Aries rising. I would go to the timestamp of Aries rising. That will be the most accurate for my journey. And then I'll think of the Libra sun forecast and that timestamp as sort of like the frosting on top of the cake. It's not the real substance of the transit, but it could be themes that I experience. And the reason I recommend interacting with this video like this is because I use solar houses. Solar houses is a technique in astrology in which we drag the sun into the first house and we set up the houses as so. Again, not the main focus of the transit, but you can absolutely experience those themes, perhaps in a more subtle way throughout the next 8 years. That will be the way that you will interact with this video if you utilize whole sign house system or if you are newer to astrology. If you utilize Placidus house system, I do as well. It's a little trickier to figure out which readings you should listen to, but I will demonstrate with an on-screen tutorial. So what you will do is you'll pull up your circle chart. I recommend using astro.com and you will find the Gemini glyph. I am circling it on screen. It looks like yellow-orange in astro.com. And from line to line, this denotes the Gemini portion of the chart. And so we see within Interplanet Janet's chart here that from line to line, Gemini expands from her 4th house into her 5th house. So she will listen to both the 4th house reading and the 5th house reading, knowing that is where Uranus in Gemini is going to shake up her chart. And then we see that she is a Cancer sun. She would then listen to her Cancer sun forecast. So now that you know exactly which reading to listen to, let's go ahead and take it into our house by house analysis. If Uranus in Gemini will transit through your 1st house, this reading is for you. You may be a Gemini rising, you may be a Gemini sun, you may just have some Gemini degrees within your 1st house. Either way, I want to firstly let you know that you are a main character of this transit. Yes, you are working deeply with the themes of Uranus. And this tends to be a very stimulating, exciting period of your life. It kind of is your DGAF era. In a sense, you can expect to feel this release of caring what people have to say about you. You really just want to live a life that is fully and truly authentic to you. This transit can be marked with a desire to break away from anything within your life that makes you feel like you have to be someone that you are not. And because of that very theme alive within this transit, it can be a time that it shakes up other arenas of your life. Other arenas of your life change because you are changing and you're no longer conforming. You're no longer wanting to fit into a mold. So this can be a time that you do break up if your relationship forces you to be someone that you are not. This could be a time that you change careers. If you feel like your job is not aligned with your own values and ethics, this can be a time that you go no contact with family members or you move just because it doesn't feel in alignment with who it is that you are. Those are not guarantees for this transit. It all centers from this awareness that your life is changing because you are changing. You can find that you no longer want to conceal. You no longer want to conceal who it is that you are. You want to let your freak flag fly. And by freak flag, I mean your unique ideas, your unique perspective. Some of you could really step into an identity as a rebel, as an anarchist, as somebody who speaks up on various topics. Uranus is a planet that is associated with astrology. So some of you could integrate astrology into your identity in some way. Some of you, I'm just getting the sense, you're going to kind of channel your inner mad scientist in a sense. I mean, some of you could legitimately be into science and technology and experience a lot of growth there. Absolutely. New discoveries there, things like this, even being visible within those fields. But there's almost an energy where you're owning your genius and you're wanting to be seen within your genius, and you're less concerned around needing to present it in a pretty package. You're like, I've got these genius ideas and I'm less interested in presenting them in a business suit if that feels outdated to me. Like, I want to dress how I want to dress. And I just want to be who I want to be. Like, even if you're not literally in a science industry, there could just be this energy around wanting to like own your weird, own your different, question everything, question authority. I will say, if you have any issues with authority now, that's only going to amplify during this transit. With Uranus in the first house, it tends to be a very powerful transit because you really trust yourself in a sense. You trust yourself, you trust your mind, you trust your perspectives, which makes you feel more comfortable vocalizing your thoughts, vocalizing your ideas, being seen around your inventions if you're an inventor, or being seen within your astrology if you're an astrologer, being seen within your technology if you work within a tech industry. There's an energy where you may be thrust to be a leader in one of these sectors, or you could even be someone who trailblazes or helps humanity in some way within this. And it does require visibility or integrating it within your identity. And to do that, you have to trust yourself. You know, a lot of you are Geminis, and so there can be an energy around, I could do this or I could do this, or overthinking, analysis paralysis. And it's not that Uranus is going to take all of that away. But what I commonly see with Uranus in the first house is that there is an energy where we are more allowing of our unique qualities to be visible out into the world, which requires you to allow yourself to be seen within these particular perspectives. If you have any kooky, wacky interests outside of the topics that I've mentioned, you could start to be seen within that. You could start to weave it into how people see you and perceive you. First house does govern the physical body, so be mindful as it relates to nerves. You could find at this time that your mind is moving so fast that you're almost like struggling to keep up with it. Focus could be a challenge. Your body could go through random shifts. Some of you could even undergo something within the next 8 years where you are relying on some sort of technology to support your body or to support your appearance in some way or fashion, or leveraging technology in order to better understand your aesthetic. You can even leverage like technology or computers to figure out what clothes you should be wearing or what you want your makeup to be. And really, when it comes to fashion, when it comes to everything, your goal at this time is to build a life that's very true to you, to wear clothes that feel very true to you. And there tends to be an awareness throughout this transit around being this means I won't fit into these molds. So it's almost purposeful for me to make these decisions because I don't want to fit into those molds, because those molds are BS regardless. This is not advice coming from the cosmic corner of the internet, but I could see some of you during this transit, like getting face tattoos or dyeing your hair pink or something like this. Fashion and aesthetic shifts that we consider weird or different or not professional, because there's just this distinguishing around, I don't want to fit into this box. I want to be me. I want to challenge what we consider as a professional scientist or what we consider as a professional altogether. Like, there could be a little bit of anarchy or rebellion even making its way through your tattoos, through your clothes, through how it is that you adorn yourself. Even if it's not so dramatic like that, a lot of you will undergo aesthetic changes, dyeing your hair different colors, maybe even shifts as it relates to your body. You know, some of you could go through some sort of like weight fluctuation, or again, leveraging science or technology in some way to support your body. But again, Uranus can be up and down energy. So there could be something a bit erratic about that. I will also say you can feel incredibly restless at this time. And it's not a time to necessarily change just for change's sake. Like, yes, Uranus is a time that we revolutionize who we are and how we see ourselves and how we present ourselves to the world, and a lot of times how we dress and all of this. But it's not the time to just change everything just because you could, Just because you could doesn't mean that you should. And the reason I say that is because Uranus is not always the most steady influence. And wherever it is that you go, there you are. So you could get the divorce and shave off all your hair and move abroad and then just find that that restlessness is there because it didn't speak to the real desire within you that was craving change. Oh, I was craving change around my mind and how I process things. And I thought my external would change my mind, but now I'm just in the same mind, looking at different scenery. Again, a lot of you are changing things, and I'm not saying you have to stay stuck or stagnant. In fact, this is a time to be open to shifts, but Uranus can be quite chaotic of an influence, and it's important to know that you take yourself wherever it is that you go. And so it's being open to change and novelty, yes, within your job and within your identity and within your relationships, absolutely, but ultimately, Uranus is in your first house, the house of self. You can change your life just by changing yourself. Like it all starts with you. Do outer circumstances of your life start to shift once you change yourself? Absolutely. But I don't want you to feel like I'll be different if I was only somewhere else, or if I dressed in different clothes, or if I was over here. Like this could be a transit that you are moving constantly, or like kind of seeking and searching, looking for that thing where it's like, this finally feels like me. And sometimes with Uranus and Gemini, it's really questioning who is me, defining that, and the changes that you want to make will shift into place. And for those of you who are Gemini rising, Gemini sun, you are mutable. Mutable is constantly changing. It's constantly shape-shifting. So it's never to say that you're ever at this end result around, this is exactly who it is that I am. You are constantly changing. And oftentimes you learn about yourself through different stimuli and places being open to the new. I mean, a lot of you could meet really unusual people. You could have all sorts of wacky experiences. There could be elements of your day-to-day reality that are exciting, that are unpredictable. And if it's not, you could be craving that. And it's not to say that it's wrong to lean into that. I just want you to remain grounded over the course of this Uranus transit. Stay open to the new, but always stay true to you. Don't feel like the answer is out there. The answer is in here. Even if you are open to unique experiences and saying yes and unpredictability out there, which I would encourage you to do so, it's important to come back to with the energy of Uranus. To thine own self be true. Does this feel like me? Do I feel like I have to perform? Because this is a time where you are so uninterested in wanting to perform or wear a mask, even for a minute. And so this can be a time where it's just harder for us to fit into places and spaces where we are expected to be a certain way. And because of that, there can be a lot of rebellion. If people are trying to tell you what to think, tell you how to say, tell you who to be, you could find that you really rebel, that you really want to break away from anything that feels like it's encasing you or cramping your style. Listen, you are moving into a transit throughout the next 8 years where you are really wanting to build a life and build a self that is truly you. This message is for you if Uranus and Gemini will transit your second house. You may be a Taurus rising, you may be a Taurus sun, you may just have some Gemini degrees within your second house, but either way, you can experience some shakeups around your finances, around your values, around your self-worth. So let's dive into this. I firstly want to acknowledge that you are stepping out of a period that could have been marked with some massive shifts and upheavals, and really an awakening. Uranus was in Taurus from 2018. That story officially wraps up in April of 2026. And this could have really generated a lot of shifts around how you interact with the world, how you see yourself, how you even look out at the world altogether. You're exiting out of a period that could have been very stimulating. There could have been a lot of ups and downs and new experiences and new discovery about yourself. You know, I always think of Uranus energy is like, Eureka, I found it. And your biggest discovery and innovation was that you found yourself. It can be a disruptive, chaotic time having Uranus in an angular house. So from that lens, it can feel to be a little bit more easeful having Uranus slip into your second house. But now that there was this awakening or this perspective shift around self, now it is impacting what it is that you own, what it is that you possess, and what it is that you value. you could go through some financial shifts at this time. And I don't want you to hear that with panic, like, Haley Comet, are you saying I'm going to lose all my money? That is not what I am implying. But I do need to be honest with you and say that Uranus can be a bit more of an erratic influence. So you could, over the course of the next 8 years, experience a lot of fluctuations within your bank account. When I see Uranus in the second house, when I'm reading natal charts, a lot of times these are individuals who work freelance or they work in sales. There's something unexpected about how their money comes in, and they'll have some months where they're making $50,000 and some months where they're making, $5,000. It's like there's ups and downs. There's not a lot of steadiness. And listen, I'm talking to a lot of Tauruses. I know you guys like some steadiness. And so this can be a period of time where you do revolutionize how it is that you earn money. Some of you could be leveraging technology in order to bring in more income. I could also see for some of you with Uranus and Gemini, you could be leveraging social media in some sort of way to bring in income, communicating about science, technology, astrology. Some of you, this is odd what's coming through, but I could almost see for some of you, there could be an energy around developing some sort of like AI social media profile that makes you money in some way. And I don't know how I feel about that. I really don't know how I feel about that, but some of you could be looking at that in some way or just really wanting to make money in different sort of ways. And you'll have to get used to the fluctuating nature of Uranus energy. We can feel like when we hit a 50K month, we feel like it's always going to be like that, but it's going to be important to prepare for the ups and downs of not only just like your money, but also just like society and humanity and what we're going through. There could be random money-making opportunities, but then the algorithm shifts on social media and that money dries up. So it's just going to be important to be a bit nimble over this period or be able to pivot if something is not working, as well as when you're making a lot of money or you have those upticks or you sell a digital book of some sort that makes a lot of money, it's important to honor that it may not last. I don't say that in a discouraging way, just so you can maximize that money that's coming in. And especially when someone works in an industry where income is a bit unstable or they're an entrepreneur or something like this, you have to learn the ebbs and flows of your money and not panic when it's down and not get cocky when it's high. That is the good thing about Uranus, is that it can make us be a little bit more detached. Like we can view things a little bit more rationally or a little bit more logically. We typically are a bit more removed from the emotion of the matter. And so you could find that you're really learning how to not like freak out. And so if you are entrepreneurial, if you work in sales, if you are developing something, if you're in a startup or something like this, where it's like there's not a lot of consistency with an income, this transit could be reflecting that. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, Miss Haley Comet, I work a 9 to 5. Like, what could this transit have in store? There could be unexpected shifts as it relates to how you bring in income, as well as unexpected opportunities. So the very nature of Uranus, it brings changes, good or bad. And with Uranus energy, again, it helps us not be too emotional about it and just, okay, this is the case. This is a situation. Maybe my industry is changing. How can I adapt? How can I adjust? How can I pivot? Some of you are learning something new to bring in more money. You're learning to leverage technology. You're learning a new skill. You're learning new technology that is going to support your bank account. You could also experience ups and downs as it relates to what you're spending money on. There could be random, unexpected expenses that come up over the course of the next 8 years. Your values could also go through a massive shift. As I've highlighted, you're stepping out of a period in which there could have been energy around wanting to really deprogram yourself from how the world programmed you to be, to figure out, who am I? And now it's impacting the sector of your chart governing your values. So you could go through some shifts around that, around, is this what I want? Or is this what other people wanted for me? Some of you could even get a random desire to sell all your belongings and be free. Like some of you could be really detached from your belongings. Some of you may even take a pay cut in order to build a way to make money that's in alignment with your integrity, in alignment with your ethics. Some of you are really questioning your values around, what made me feel I have to own a house with a picket fence? Like, what do I really value? What do I want to spend my money on? You could also experience some ups and downs as it relates to your self-worth. If any of you are incredibly hard on yourself and you struggle with worthiness, this could be like a mental breakthrough that helps you start to see your worth. That can also impact your pricing. If you do price your services or something like this, the energy of Uranus, you could be shaking it up. You could be revolutionizing it in some way, revolutionizing your pricing structure, bringing in new ways to make money in some way. I would be mindful as it relates to your money with Uranus energy. Sometimes there can be glitches. There could be unexpected events. And you could also have very like radical, rebellious ideas around money and just like the values of society. You could be vocal around your ideas about money altogether. And on that note, some of you are really wanting to vote with your dollar. Like some of you could be fundraising for different causes that you believe in for humanity, driving money to worthy aims. Some of you could be really wanting to vote with your dollar, buying from companies where you are in alignment with their values and their ethos, really wanting to put your money towards what you believe in, or using your money as a tool for revolution or as a tool for rebellion. So if there are certain companies that are against how you envision the future and want the future to be for individuals, there could be a desire to withdraw your money from that and put your money towards businesses and people who really affirm the world that you believe in, the world that you want to help create. If Uranus will transit through your third house, this means you may be an Aries rising, you may be an Aries sun, you may just have some Gemini degrees within your third house. Either way, this message is for you. And you have a message to share at this time. And Uranus in Gemini is going to prompt you to share your message, speak your truth, use your voice. That is the focus for the next 8-ish years for you with Uranus transiting here. Third house governs the mind, and you can go through some shifts. You know, it's not about vocalizing things from this perspective around this is how it is, and I am utterly removed from any discourse around other ways that it could be. Gemini is a very curious sign, so it's not about speaking our opinions from this lens around this is how it is and I will not be convinced of otherwise. It's remaining teachable. It's remaining open to other people's perspectives and even to how we evolve. Like I'm sure as you look back at your past, there's certain opinions that you've had or even certain things that you've done on social media that you look back at now and you're like, oh, I don't stand by that or I don't agree with that. That's what was being shown within my mind's eye is that energy when you like creep yourself in old social media posts and you're like, oh, this is so cringy. And it's not. You were just sharing what was real and true for you at that season of life. And it is a sign of growth that we evolve and connect to new sides of ourselves. But there is an energy where sometimes we're like, I see things so much differently, or I use social media in such a different way. And sometimes we can, cringe at our past self. But with Uranus and Gemini, just knowing you are constantly evolving. The most intelligent person in the room isn't the person who's like, I know everything and everyone needs to listen to me. It's the person who's still asking questions. That is the most intelligent person in the room, is someone who sees every environment as an opportunity to learn something new. And so yes, with Uranus and Gemini, some of you have some ideas that are going to open people's minds, open people up to a different perspective. You're going to write books, you're going to have a podcast, you're going to share on social media in a way that helps humanity move towards the future. No pressure. And I don't mean to make that sound dramatic. It's like, even if you don't have these aims of wanting to change the world, there just could be very innovative ideas that you come up with at this time and that you express and you share. And you have to get comfortable with speaking them out into the world, even if they're weird, even if they're different. Think that it's important to share them because they are weird and different. Like that's where we get book series that are just so different to what everybody else is writing about, or thought leaders who speak out a perspective that is sorely needed from the conversation. Like you have to be willing to go against the grain at this time. That's where you're going to make waves as the change maker that you are. So it's important to honor that your mind is a transmitter and a receiver. Uranus always makes me think of technology. So I'm just seeing that a lot of you are going to be like downloading more, channeling more. Uranus is not in and of itself always considered to be a very spiritual planet, but it is kind of around those like genius ideas, like those downloads, those light bulb moments, those moments in the shower when you just get this like eureka, I've got it, I thought of it sort of energy. That's Uranus. And you could experience that throughout the next 8 years, just random ideas that just feel like they're plopped into your mind as though they were transmitted there. Listen, they were. And you're the conduit for them. And it's going to be important to get out of your own way as the conduit for these ideas. Oftentimes we can judge what we are saying as it's coming through, thinking, how is this going to land? Are people going to think this is weird? Is this going to trend? What have you? And it's going to be important to get out of your own way, because oftentimes when we modify what's coming through in order to try to soften it or to make it land for every single person, sometimes we can get in the way of just the transmission of that idea. And I'm not saying you have to post everything that comes in, but like write it down, allow it to flow through before you shift into editing or modifying or like, that's so weird, or no one will get that. And on that note, if you do social media, if you do have a podcast, if you do anything around writing, disseminating of information, this should be a very electrifying, innovative time for you. You can get random new opportunities. You could really want to learn about algorithms and how to really work with the game of algorithms. Again, it's not doing it for the algorithms, but it's like using these tools in order to broadcast this message and understanding that there is a science, there's a way of when you post and how you post and working with the technologies as they come up. Some of you will have to update your technology. Even if you are not on social media, you may have to update your technology at this time or learn new skills in order to remain current. So if you are an influencer, there could be certain updates to the platforms that you just kind of like pivot and integrate. And again, Uranus energy helps us not be so emotional about it. So sometimes it could be a lot around, oh, I just learned how to do this and now I have to do this. It's like we're having to keep up with these things and it can seem to be harder more than it's easier. But I just see at this particular time, it's going to be helpful for you, as well as learning about technology, informational systems is going to be helpful. Some of you could learn certain skills at this time that are new industries or help us think in new ways or solve new sorts of problems. Again, honor the questions that come up for you at this time. Like ask lots of questions. Ask questions around the problems that you experience. Another invention that was created when Uranus was last in Gemini was Velcro, which was developed when an individual was hunting in the Switzerland forest, and he kept having burrs, I believe, stuck to his socks. And again, it's such a small thing. Gemini can govern just like our daily environment and situations. And he could have just brushed it off. I mean, not so much because burrs are a bit sticky, which is the point of this, because within the questioning of that, rather than just being like, burrs on the socks, let me go back to hunting, there was like a question around, why do burrs stick to my socks? Why does that happen? And that very question is what prompted the way towards inventing Velcro. I'm not saying that you're going to invent Velcro, but what I'm saying is really pay attention to the unique questions that come up for you as you navigate day-to-day life. And question, could there be a different way to do this? Could there be an easier way to do this? Some of you could leverage a technology in order to keep track of your files in some way, or to delegate certain tasks, automate certain tasks. Again, it could be such a pain to learn about these things, but I genuinely feel like it could open up more brain space for you at this time. You may be seen as somebody who is a bit unusual as a communicator at this time with the energy of Uranus in the third house. You're wanting to speak your mind, even if it's weird. You're less interested in social norms. You're wanting to say what you mean and mean what you say. You're not interested in group text politics. You're not interested in social norms. You're just like, what's the point? What's the point of all that? You could have unusual, erratic experiences with neighbors. Neighbors could randomly move in or move out. They could be disruptive in some way, erratic in some way. You could have some unusual experiences with your siblings. Now, on the lighter side of this could represent that your siblings go through some sort of like awakening. They could be open to different sorts of topics in some way. They could be going through certain shifts within their lives, or they could be seen as very erratic, very unstable, and experiencing some ups and downs at this time. This message is for you if Uranus will transit through your fourth house during its time in Gemini. This is the case for you if you are a Pisces rising, if you are a Pisces sun when we consider solar houses, or you may just have some Gemini degrees within your 4th house. Wherever it is that you fall within these categories, here are some themes to expect the unexpected within. So firstly, I want to let you know that this may be a more turbulent transit and time for you. I just need to be straight up that Uranus is going to harshly aspect the mutables. And even if you're not a Pisces sun or rising, you have Uranus transiting an angular house, which is more of a life-altering, defining sector of life. And so you are having some shifts at this time. The most obvious of these could be a move. 4th house does have to deal with our residents. There could be shocking, unexpected shifts that occur that make you move out of the neighborhood. There could be shocking occurrences with neighbors that make you move, or there just could be volatile circumstances where you have to pivot your living situation. Now, it's not so dramatic for all of you. Some of you could just find that you no longer relate to where you live. You no longer feel like where you live is a reflection of self. You know, having a strong Uranus transit could be incredibly restless of an energy. So if you've had this building sense of restlessness around, I no longer relate with this city, I want to live more in nature, or I'm sick of feeling so isolated, I want to be around other individuals, or the people that I'm surrounded by in where it is that I live, I don't see eye to eye with. We don't have the same ideas. I don't like conversing with these sort of individuals. This could be the planetary push you needed to finally move, to finally uproot. Because Uranus is this energy where it doesn't make that not scary, but it typically is an energy where you're more open to shifts. You're more open to changes around, let's get some different scenery. Let me root myself in a place where I feel seen for my unique self. Like, especially if you live in a place where you feel like it's cramping your style. You live in a place where it's like, I'm not myself here. This is not me. You can find that this transit is marked by a time in which you land in a place to live that does feel like you. And even if you do not dramatically move, this could be a time where you move from an apartment to a house, or a house to a condo, or something like this. There could be a shift here. And with the energy of Uranus, it could happen quite fast. You know, sometimes we forget how quickly our lives can change. Like, things could shift at any moment. And I don't say that in a scary way, but I mean, if you are unhappy in a circumstance, like, you never know when the perfect living opportunity is going to open up, and like, bam, you're living in this different reality. Suddenly, like, Uranus energy could be like kind of timeline shift energy like that. And I do want to highlight a lot of you for the first part of this transit have North Node in your sign, or North Node most likely transiting your 1st house. So this absolutely could be a time that you feel like you are yanked out of your life as you know it and plopped into a different timeline. And that could be reflected in changes within your living situation. I do need to say to you that Uranus is not the most stable energy. So there could be moving in somewhere and then you have to move out, or there's some sort of disruption. There's some sort of electricity issue or something like this comes up in a property. There can absolutely be shakeups and random occurrences and ups and downs, and moving in somewhere and feeling like it's going to be your forever home, and then something shifts and you've got to shift gears. You know, the best way to navigate Uranus energy is to just be able to adapt and be able to pivot. And I will say Uranus is an immutable sign. A lot of you are mutable suns or risings if you do have Pisces within your chart. So mutable energy is able to shift and adapt. You know, Pisces is a fish. Sometimes you got to shift directions if the current shifts, right? And Uranus energy does help us be a little bit less attached. It helps us be a little bit more detached, especially around our emotions. So there could be an energy around being able to see something for what it is and pivot accordingly without layering in your emotions into it. For example, let's say something comes up and you need to sell the family home that you grew up in. Of course, that is a loss and you feel into that, but you may be surprised around this Uranus energy that you're like, it's just a property. Like, I feel more detached from that at this particular time. Or if there is a sudden event that makes you have to move, just this energy of around, okay, where to live next. Again, I can be mad or get upset that this occurred, but all I can do now is just like move forward. And all I could do now is find the best place for me to live. And all I could do now is just find the best place for me to live. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, Haley Comet, but I love where I live. I don't want to move. I don't want anything to change. I would just say you can expect random home repairs could come up. There could be random disputes with your landlord. Could be an energy around needing to rebel or needing to advocate or needing to kind of go back to the terms of your mortgage or go back to your HOA, CC, and Rs, right? In order to review something. Like sometimes with Uranus energy, we have to rebel. Or you could just be looking at your home decor and really wanting it to feel like you, like with the energy of Uranus, wanting lime green wallpaper, if that's what you desire, or a mod look within the bathroom, or a living room that's decorated with whale art. Listen, be true, be you. Allow your home to be a genuine reflection of the unique, authentic soul that you are. And you could absolutely experience that at a time such as this. I do need to bring up family themes. So when it comes to fourth house, it is the roots by which the rest of the chart is grown upon. And so it is a sector of the chart and thus of our lives that is associated with ancestry. And so with the energy of Uranus in the fourth house, there could be things that you see clearly, like almost like light bulb moments where you look back at certain elements of your childhood or even just like looking at your parents or how they were raised, and you're able to just kind of like see it in a different perspective. Like I said, Uranus and Gemini, it's all about seeing it in a different perspective where it doesn't take away the pain of it, but there could be an energy around, oh, that's why they behaved so radically, was because A, B, and C. Or, oh, that's why I was raised in the ways that I was raised because of this family ancestral theme that ran through the lineage. Like there just could be an energy around being able to see something differently. And like I said about Uranus energy, it tends to be a little bit more detached. So being able to see the logic of it or view it from this more intellectual perspective, or to see something with like shocking clarity. You know, that energy when you think about something that you considered as normal, and then you really think about it, or you talk about it with a sibling or something like this, and you're like, that wasn't normal. Like how we grew up, that was not normal. Like you could also have like light bulb moments like that around, that was odd. That was weird. That was an unusual experience. Or just even thinking back to certain childhood memories and now outside of the, you know, veneer of innocence that we have when we're younger, like viewing it now, like, oh, that's why this and this. That's why this and this. Like there just could be like certain random clarity that you receive about your childhood around your family members altogether. Some of your family members could be behaving quite erratically at this time. There could be random, unexpected events regarding your family members. I don't want you to hear this with any fear. I don't think that supports us whatsoever, but there could be random occurrences. I do need to highlight with the energy of Gemini, you could experience potentially one of your parents, fourth house would particularly emphasize mother, maternal energy, could deal with some like cognitive mental decline or confusion of the mind, or be a little like erratic or unstable mentally, could be one way of viewing this. There could be on-off communication with your family members at this time. So again, maybe with that breakthrough energy, you're like, yeah, those are people that I don't necessarily need to have within my life. Or you have a breakthrough energy where you're like, okay, let's see how communication goes. There could be something like on, off, start, stop about communication with family members. You could also go through changes as it relates to your family members. There could be random occurrences within the family. Extreme example, you could find out that you have a sister that you didn't know about, a brother that you didn't know about. Technically, third house is the sibling house, but it feels important to mention here. Gemini is a sign that is associated with siblings, and with fourth house, it kind of can indicate themes such as like family secrets. So with the energy, there could be some surprising family secrets, not to necessarily say it's a sibling, that come to light at this time. And when we talk about fourth house, beyond our family and what that's built on, it's also our emotional landscape. So you just could have some ahas around your experience thus far and what it is that you want to build out in the world. This is not a sector that's associated with out in the world, but it's like in order to build anything powerful and even life-changing and impactful for the humanity, it has to start from within. And so with the energy of Uranus in the fourth house, there can be certain awakenings that you go through, certain light bulb moments that you have, moments of clarity that really illuminate who it is that you want to be moving forward. You could experience liberation from certain emotional patterns and how it is that they have kept you stuck. You could really free yourself. Again, sometimes just viewing things clearly around, I internalized this and I felt like it was something wrong about me. There could be an energy around freeing yourself from where you've been told that you're too sensitive, you're too much. The energy of Uranus is like, listen, my ability to feel deeply is a superpower. I'm going to fundamentally see that as a strength. I do not see how deeply I feel as a weakness. I see it as a strength. And it's not that you're necessarily moving into this very emotional time, but I do feel like a lot of you are really stepping into your intuition and you're understanding that your emotions are a powerful way to be able to delinate. Or even Uranus is the planet of the future. So even like when you get a bad feeling about something, like someone invites you to a party and you just get a bad feeling about it, like I feel like a lot of you are trusting that and you are fundamentally deprogramming anything within you that made you feel like you're too emotional or your emotions can't be trusted. You're like, no, this is my most accurate GPS. I'm listening. I'm listening to this. And it can be like a premonition around like the party went haywire and your friends come to you like, how did you know not to go? And you're like, it felt off. It felt off. I just had this moment of clarity and it just felt off. And on that note of deprogramming, when Uranus is moving through this very sacred, private territory of the chart, there just could be this energy, whether it's deprogramming from family, deprogramming from society, but you're just in this energy to really contemplate your inner reservoirs and what code is being run within your world. And it's like, this is not true to me, or this is not empowering. Like I said, this can be a liberating transit. It can be disruptive if we experience changes with home and family, but it also can be liberating. It could be liberating from emotional patterns. It could be liberating from generational themes that have carried on because now you see them with clarity and you want to shift into a new perspective. It could be liberating in seeing where it is that you've been programmed by your family, by society at large, and really wanting to live life in accordance to your own terms based on what feels right. You know, Uranus is to thine own self be true energy. And so a lot of you are rebellious. Yes, maybe with family, with landlords, with roommates, what have you. But it's like rebellious to the outer world at large around, I don't want to go to a place that's going to make me miserable. I don't want to live a life where I'm going to feel drained every single day. Just because that's normal does not mean that that's something that I'm going to invite in with my reality. Some of you are rebelling against that and you're like devoted to build a life that is conducive for how it is that you want to feel. And so you can find that there is this rebellious energy that is baked deep within for the next 8 years. While things can shake, your foundation is steady. Like, yes, there can be disruptions around the home. There could be disruptions around family, things that you thought would last forever. There could start to be cracks in the foundation. Your parents that you thought were going to stay together forever break up, or you and your spouse break up, like some shift around the family home changes. Again, I'm not putting that out there, but sometimes that is a theme with Uranus in the fourth house. And even if it doesn't come up within relationships, if it comes up within home or what have you, things can feel a little chaotic and erratic and can make us feel like, where's my center? Because this is the roots of the chart. It's the foundation of the chart. And it's just important, even though things around you might be shaking, it's important to come back to your own foundation, to build a really strong foundation within yourself, to affirm at this time, I am safe. I am safe. Even though my outer circumstances, there are shifts, to build your own world in such a way that you remain unshakable, that you remain unmovable. Now, it's reality, of course. Feel the feelings, process it, but really build the inner infrastructure in order to navigate this turbulence at this time. If Uranus and Gemini will transit through your fifth house, this message is for you. You may potentially be an Aquarius rising. You potentially may be an Aquarius sun. You potentially may just have some Gemini degrees within your fifth house. Wherever it is that you fall within those categories, buckle your seatbelts for a very electrifying, exciting time of your life. I first want to highlight that if you are an Aquarius rising or an Aquarius sun, this transit is even more significant for you because this is your ruling planet from a modern perspective. And with that, when our ruling planet shifts, we shift. And I will say this should be a welcome shift for you. It's moving into a fun house, the territory of partying, of romance, of creativity. And it's also going to trine any placements that you have in Aquarius, which is a harmonious flow of energy. So you're likely to experience more fun changes, more exciting changes, versus other signs in the zodiac and other houses that Uranus could be transiting through. And there just could be an energy to electrify your thinking, to electrify your perspective. You could feel like you're looking at your life through fresh new eyes, like a sensation of novelty, of newness. You could feel like a kid again. You could feel like a child again. Like there's this energy of novelty and newness and just wanting to have fun. Sometimes when things get so chaotic and intense, like out in the world, we want to rebel by having more fun. We want to rebel by partying. We want to rebel by like living up. And again, I'm not saying to not be the rebel, do what it is that you can do to make a difference. But I feel for some of you, you're like, my act of rebellion is going to be to love who I want to love and to have fun and to dance and to feel the love on the dance floor and to speak what I want for the world through my art. Like there just could be an energy where you're just like more life and genuinely utilizing partying or dancing or even romance, love, the arts as a vehicle for rebellion or advocacy, if that is something that you desire. If that's not something that you desire, it could just be a time where you're wanting to shake up your life. You could be a little bit more restless. You want to have more fun. You want to date different sorts of people. You want to say yes to different sorts of parties. You want to experiment with different things. I would be mindful when it comes to the experimentation. Okay, Uranus could be very up and down of an influence. So this is not my official comet cosign into dabbling in all the things, but there can be an energy where you want to have fun. You want to be wild. You want to break out of any sort of restrictions. And because of that, not putting this out there, you are in charge of your life, not the astrology. I'm just indicating that this can be a transit where we start to see themes of being unfaithful or being reckless physically or gambling and losing a lot of money. Gambling and gaining a lot of money could also be a theme here. Like those can be themes that are experienced over the course of the next 8 years. I want to highlight that fifth house governs dating, love, and physicality. And so you could be experimenting in that arena, but I would encourage you to be safe, to use protection, to be mindful of unexpected pregnancies. Uranus energy could bring some shocks there. If that's not what you desire, I would be conscious around that. And you also find that you're dating unusual sorts of people. You could have random love affairs that start and stop. Uranus energy is sort of that way. I always think of Uranus as technology and just think of a light switch. It's like it's on and then it's off. And it just is sudden. It's quick. It's electrifying. It's exciting. These are the sort of love affairs that open up our perspective. They change our mind on something. They open us up to a whole new world. And then it's just over. And I don't mean to say that in a negative way. I just would say, yes, this is the time to learn about the world through dating different sorts of people and meeting different sides of yourself. When you do connect with these people, it typically is not conducive for building a very long-term relationship unless you have other transits that indicate as such. Because there's this desire where we do want to feel free. Typically with Uranus in the fifth house, we want to feel free in order to have fun. If we want to go to the party, going to the party. If we want to say yes to this date, saying yes to the date. If we want to hit on this person, being able to hit on this person. Like there typically is a desire to have some freedom in a sense. And also we could just be dating individuals who are freedom seeking themselves, where they are genius, they're brilliant, they're against the grain, they do their own thing, they're inventors, they're founders, they're these unusual types of people. You know, you could be dating some unusual types of people over the next 8 years. And each of these people are going to change you and electrify you. There's so many different things that we learn from the people that we date. But when it's over, it's over. When the light switch is off, it's off. When it's on, it's on. It's just allowing in these electrifying, exciting love affairs and striving to not be too devastated if they don't turn out. Because a lot of times the connections that we find when Uranus in the fifth house, they were never destined to be our one and only. They're destined to open up our perspective or to illuminate a part of our gifts or to help us in figuring out what it is that we really desire. So you could absolutely date all sorts of really unusual people at this time, magicians, mathematicians, and inventors and founders and all sorts of unusual people, maybe even unusual dating circumstances. Listen, if you're a writer, write about it. Okay, Uranus and Gemini in the 5th house, write about your unusual experiences at this time. If you are not someone who has been open to dating, I would encourage you to do so at this time. And with Uranus energy, this can be a time that you are leveraging technology in order to improve your dating chances. Again, this is not me commentating on the ethics of dating apps or using AI to form answers. Everybody needs to decide that for themselves. I could just see that it may be a potential with Uranus in the 5th house. Let's say you're listening to this and you're like, Haley Comet, I am married. Like, I don't think I'm going to be dating mathematicians and magicians and astrologers at a time such as this. I would say you can be feeling more restless and wanting to experiment, especially physically. And I'm not saying you have to answer that call. Like, 5th house can be hedonistic. I'm not saying you need to go outside of your relationship. Like, please live in alignment with your ethics. Do not do that. But it can be a time that you do feel that temptation. And if it's not for other people, you could feel a temptation as it relates to partying, as it relates to gambling. Like, these are all the arenas of the 5th house. And these are activities that you could do with your partner. It just depends if your partner is able to meet you in this energy. Like, you could find you're wanting to go to more concerts. You could find that you're wanting to have more spontaneous outings. And it could be a very electrifying, exciting time if your partner is down to meet you within that. 5th house is that fun, flirty, physical part of a relationship. So the two of you could be experimenting in that arena as well. 5th house governs children, hence why I was saying to be cautious if that is not something that you want. It could happen randomly, suddenly. You could leverage technology in order to conceive in some way. You could also find that there's unexpected, random occurrences with your children. Your children could go through some sort of awakening or some sort of rebellious phase, or something like this could be alive over the course of the next 8 years. 5th house is our creative expression. So like I said, with Uranus and Gemini, you could utilize your art as a way to vocalize the changes that you want to see within the world at large. You could get into different sort of modalities of self-expression. You could create art that is unusual, wacky, like it's from a different planet. Is what I'm seeing. Like, and listen, a lot of you are Aquariuses. That's what you're here to do, is be weird, to go against the grain. And if you are a creative or you want to be a creative, you could absolutely create something within the next 8 years that is just so different. Music that is unlike what most people create, and paintings that are so deep that it takes people multiple looks in order to get all of the nuance of it, or concept art that is so unusual that it leaves people walking out of the gallery like, what was that? But it also like stays in their mind. Movies that just are disruptive, that are innovative. So you could absolutely be a conduit for some really unusual, unique ideas to come through at this time. If Uranus will transit through your 6th house, this message is for you. You may be a Capricorn rising. You may be a Capricorn sun if we consider solar houses, or you may just have some Gemini degrees within your 6th house. Wherever it is that you fall within those categories, let's unpack what you may experience for the next 8 years. This is a fascinating combination. We've got Uranus, the planet of shaking things up, doing things differently, instability, and innovation, entering into your 6th house, which governs day-to-day routines, health, coworkers. And then layered on by the reality that a lot of you listening to this are Capricorns, which tend to be very hardworking or very structured. This is an interesting slice of time that you are moving into. And Uranus energy is interesting because sometimes life is the catalyst itself, where we have some sort of shakeup in our routine just because that's what occurs, where you worked remote and now you're having to work in the office, or you had an office job and you got a new job to work remote, or you lost your job and got a different new job. Like, sometimes life forces us to change our daily routine, and that could be a theme for some of you over this slice of time. But for others of you, you're changing your life. You're changing your routine. Your routine is changing because you are changing. Because this could be a transit that you do feel very restless. If you are working at a job that you consider monotonous, you don't feel like you are learning anything, If that is a dull hum now, that is going to get louder and louder and louder throughout the course of this transit. And it might get so loud that you are nudged to make some sort of change, to revolutionize and innovate your day-to-day reality. Some of you could learn a new skill in order to work within a new industry. Some of you can have certain volatile events happen within your workplace. There could be unexpected issues with coworkers, unexpected glitches or technical difficulties as it relates to your daily work. There could be elements of your workplace that feel very unstable. If you do have employees or there are people that you have hired with the energy of Uranus, you could experience some rebellion from them. You could join a union if that is relevant in your workplace. You could rebel for better working conditions, or if you employ others, they could rebel against you. The spirit of rebellion is alive as it relates to work. And you could just be rebelling against life where you're just like, oh, I need this job, so I have to stay here, but I'm going to rebel in my own little ways, in the ways that make sense for me, where maybe it's that I take longer at lunch, or maybe I refuse to answer these particular texts after I'm off work, or I vocalize, I stand up for my fellow employees if my employers are doing something shady. You know, when I was in college, I worked at a coffee shop and my bosses had us all come in for this mandatory meeting. And once I got my paycheck, I reached out to the managers and I said, hi, I didn't see my hours for the meeting that we had. And they responded, they said, meeting time is unpaid. And that didn't fly with me. That did not fly with me at all. The way my Mercury and Mars and Aquarius is set up, I was like, absolutely not. So I deeply researched the law and I sent them back a well-written, basically essay citing my sources, basically saying it is illegal in the state of California to make us come to a meeting that you do not pay us for. And so they were like, fine, we'll put it on your paycheck. And they tried to just do it for me. But I was like, absolutely not. Everybody needs to get paid. I banded together with the other baristas and told them, you need to vocalize this. You need to say this. And I'm sure they knew that I was the one who's telling everyone to do this, but I didn't care because it was in the name of justice. And I am just not about anybody being taken advantage of in any sort of way. And so you could have one of those moments within yourself. Obviously that was small. It was just like 2 hours of what we were making, like $8 or something. Like $16 did not change anybody's life, but it's the principle of it. Like with the energy of Uranus in the 6th house, there are workplace practices that are inhumane. If there's workplace politics that just seem catty, even just like workplace social norms could feel dumb and fake to you, where it's like, I know I'm meant to go to these happy hours, but it's like, it just seems fake. I don't want to be there. Or even certain expectations around when I'm in office, you've got to wear this or you've got to do this. Those sort of themes could feel really like your style is really being cramped at this time. You're not wanting anyone to cramp your style. An unfortunate part about work is that sometimes work does cramp our style and it's just in the name of necessity around sometimes a job just needs to be a job. But I would say if you've wanted to innovate your workplace in some sort of way, this could be a helpful transit to do so. Learning a different skill in order to pivot into a different industry, shifting into something that's freelance or that you own your time. Because Uranus in the 6th house, we tend to like spontaneity within our routine at this time. Like you could find that even if you are a structured Capricorn rising, Capricorn sun, and you wake up at a set time, you go to bed at a certain time, and you go to Orange Theory Fitness on these days, and you go to Barry's on these days. Like even if you are somebody who's very ritualistic, this could be a time that you're wanting to shake it up. I want to get up at 10 a.m. on Sundays and get up at 4 a.m. on other days. I want to do Pilates on this day and I want to go rock climbing on this day. Like you just want to really shake up your life, spice up your life. And any sort of monotony is going to be something that you are very resistant against. And so it's very common during this time for individuals to shake up their lifestyle in order to meet their fluctuating energy levels. Where if you're having a lot of resistance to being in the office at a set time, it's like, how can I own my own hours and grab hold of this innovative energy that I have access to? Because some of you could have innovative ideas of like, a business that you want to start or a field that you want to get into, a freelance role that you want to create. You could find that you get really resentful when it comes to work or other like service obligations within your life. You can get resentful around, oh, I don't want to be here pretending to care when I could be working on this exciting, exhilarating idea that I have. Because Uranus energy It's like a lightning bolt, you know, it comes in suddenly, and there can be an energy where it comes in just as much as it leaves. So you're like, okay, I'll work on this idea after I get off work at 5 p.m. But then when you do, you're not inspired anymore. Like sometimes there's just a desire where you want to create, you want the space to be able to envision new ideas. But that being said, this is not the most consistent energy. So it's not my encouragement to just quit your job and just jump into something without proper research and without proper knowledge of the industry. That's not my recommendation at all. It just tends to be a time that we are craving more freedom, and you can take the steps in order to experience time freedom. That's what you're after at this time, is time freedom. And you could experience a lot of resentment around where your time does not feel free. And that can show up in many different arenas. You know, 6th house is service, it's errands. So there just could be an energy where it's like the monotony of life. You're like, I have to go to the grocery store again. I have to pick up my kids again. I got to do this again. I got to take little Fluffy to the vet again. It could just be like you're wanting to feel free. And the daily maintenance of life could feel like it's really bogging you down quite a bit at this time. I do need to highlight 6th house is our health. And so there could be unusual, wacky things that happen with your health, random health symptoms that come on and leave just as fast. If you've been dealing with something, the energy of Uranus could connect with some sort of practitioner who's wacky, who's unusual, who gives you a solution, or you could be open to acupuncture or something that's different than the norm in terms of medical care in order to support your body and support your health. You could also try on different exercise routines. You could experience changes as it relates to your diet, as it relates to your nutrition at this time. All in all, it's important to know this can be a time that you're craving spontaneity and adventure and feeling alive. And there's going to be this sensation. It can feel like restlessness, but there's this desire to want to open up your eyes to each day and interact with it as though it was brand new. And even though it can feel like it's not brand new, like, I'm going to the same office with the same people, doing the same job, what have you, it's important to tune into, especially now, all of the unique nuances of this particular day. That it may be a Tuesday like any other, but it's not just a Tuesday like any other. You're never going to talk to the same exact people that you will on this particular Tuesday, or have the same exact chat with your coworker, or hang out with Fluffy in exactly the same way. Like there's nuances and novelty all around us. And with Uranus energy, you may need to remind yourself as well as grab hold of spontaneity in smaller ways. It's not saying you have to move abroad, quit your job. Like maybe your spontaneous rebellious act is going to the beach after work. Maybe it is waking up early to go for a hike before you go in for your responsibilities. Or when you drop the kids off at daycare, you go and take yourself for an ice cream cone or something like that. Those mini little rebellions that remind you that you have free will, even though we have obligations, we have people and arenas that we are of service to. You do have free will, and you have the ability to change things at any point in time. If Uranus and Gemini will transit through your 7th house, this is your reading. You may be a Sagittarius rising, you may be a Sagittarius sun, you may just have some Gemini degrees within the 7th house. Wherever it is that you fall within those categories, this is your reading, and this is your emphasis for the next 8-ish years or so. I want to start our conversation by letting you know that when we have a transit in an angular house, such as the 7th house, it is more noteworthy, it is more significant. So some of us are having a more subtle Uranus and Gemini story. You are having a more in-your-face Uranus and Gemini story, which does not necessarily have to be a negative thing. That's the very nature of Uranus, is that it is not positive nor negative. It is utterly a neutral planet, and our ability to fare during your Uranus transit really comes down to how able we are to shift with the changes of life and how radically ourselves we are devoted to be. Now, the territory of your life that may go through some changes and disruptions from 2025 to 2033 is around your relationships, your one-to-one contacts, your business partners, your contracts, even your open enemies is 7th house. And so how will this surface for you? I will say you can find that you have some very eclectic partnerships at this time. You could be partnering with some really unique people and really being drawn to people who are unique, people who are true to themselves. Like you could find that you're just more intrigued by people who break out of the norm, who do not abide and align with the status quo. Like those are the people that you are going to feel really electrified to be around. And if you're listening to this and you're like, well, Haley Comet, I already like people like that. I like people who own their weird. I like people who let their freak flag fly. You can find that you are less willing to conform with any sort of relation that is not that for the next 8-ish years or so. You can find that you are really not wanting to have any relationships in your life where you feel like you have to be cookie cutter or the person feels like they need to abide by what society is expecting them to be. You could just find those sort of connections are draining and exhausting. You want to be true to yourself, having a harsh Uranus transit at some point in the next 8 years, and you want to be around people who are true to themselves as well. And so you can definitely partner with individuals who are unique, who work in unusual fields, who dress in unusual ways, who refuse to be defined by normalcy within societal expectations. Like those could be the people that you're really lit up by being around. And honestly, you can find your patience for individuals who are trying to be cool or trying to fit in really wears thin at this time. If you are single, you could absolutely meet individuals in very random, unexpected ways. And you could also find your type as it relates to partnerships is revolutionized in some way, is shaken up in some way. You may find that you are attracted to a different gender than you are accustomed to being attracted to. You could find that typically you go for certain types of people and now you are broadening your horizons. Again, within every connection, we learn something. And with Uranus energy, you are really challenging your expectations around connection, as well as like society's expectations around connection. Some of you could enter into a relationship that is considered weird to other people, to narrow minds. They may judge you or your relationship as weird, whether it's an open relationship or there's a major age gap. There may be something that is very unusual and eccentric about the connection and the relationship that you enter into at this time. Uranus is not the most stabilizing influence. So I'm not saying, looking at just this transit, that everybody's going to like find their person and run off into the sunset, right? We would want to see some other chart indicators of that. What I will say is that you absolutely can meet people in unusual ways, have people who awaken your perspective and who you learn a lot through, but these relationships can start and stop with a startling velocity. You know, I always think about Uranus governing electricity and just, you know, light switch on and then it's off like suddenly. So sometimes you could find that there's on-off relationships at this time, or just relationships that come into your life with as much quickness as a lightning bolt and then disappear just as quickly. And same goes with business partners as well. You could get like spontaneous ideas for going into business with someone and then spontaneously find this no longer aligns for us. It's not the most stabilizing influence, but it can be very exciting in terms of who you're meeting, the rooms that you're in. You're wanting to be around people who are true to themselves and rebels and revolutionaries, creatives, just people who go against the grain are the people you're wanting to be surrounded by. And you're also wanting relationships that go against the grain. You could be rebelling against the overall societal expectations around relationships. So even finding like maybe you're in a relationship and with Uranus in the 7th house, finding that you're rebelling against society's pressure of you to get married in order for your relationship to seem normal to the external world. You could just be challenging relationship norms altogether. And if you are in a relationship and you're like, Haley Comet, it's not necessarily unconventional, like very Uranian, what may come up at this time? So I want to say firstly that transits to our 7th house can indicate what our partner is going through. So some of you can find throughout the course of the next 8 years, again, on and off, depending on when it will align with your descendant. That's an important transit to plug into. But your partner could go through something. They could be going through changes within their life. They could be going through an awakening. They could be going through a midlife crisis. They can be craving more spontaneity within their lives. They could be contemplating how they've lived a lot of their lives maybe for other people and wanting to reclaim their life on their own terms. And some of you are going to be like, heck yes, let's do this. Let's shake up our lives. Let's try new things. Let's travel together. Let's be the weird couple. Let's go against the grain. Let's rebel. Like some of you are going to be down for that. Some of you may find that this makes you uncomfortable. Because again, if we've been in a relationship with someone, then all of a sudden they switch things up, sometimes the relationship doesn't align for us as it did before. And again, the pulse of Uranus energy is to thine own self be true. So it really doesn't do either of you any good for either of you to pretend to be something that you are not. So sometimes if you're finding that you're not down with the changes that your partner is making, this can be a time of a breakup, of a divorce. I'm not saying it needs to go in that direction, but that can be a direction it goes in, particularly if you feel like I have to sacrifice certain elements of myself in order to keep this relationship alive, or vice versa as it relates to your partner. And sometimes the energy of Uranus, you're wanting to change with your partner. You're wanting to try new things. You're wanting to spice up your life. And some of you, this is going to be a welcome change, especially if you've been feeling very monotonous in your relationship. Uranus dials up that restlessness, and if the two of you were able to step into this energy together and shake things up and try new things, it could be a very exciting, exhilarating time within your union. But if one or two of you are resistant to that and wanting to keep things as they were, it's when there can be friction within the connection. And this transit can be linked with unfaithfulness and infidelity. Now, that is not a rule whatsoever. That is not something that needs to manifest for every single person. But sometimes there is an energy of restlessness where you're wanting to go out, you're wanting to experience life, you're wanting to date different people. And so sometimes people seek that excitement, that Uranian excitement outside of the relationship rather than in the confines of the relationship. It could also show up vice versa if your partner is wanting to shake things up and do things differently. Again, we don't see that as commonly as we do with some other transits. The main theme of Uranus is around change, novelty, disruption. Those are the main themes, and any sort of infidelity or unfaithfulness is kind of driven around those particular themes. This reading is for you if Uranus in Gemini from 2025 to 2033 will make its way through your 8th house. You may be a Scorpio sun, you may be a Scorpio ascendant, or you may just have some Gemini degrees located in the 8th house. Here is what you can expect from the planet of the unexpected for the next 8-ish years or so. And let's unpack this because the 8th house is very layered and it's very loaded. So I want to start our dialogue by talking about merging, because that's what 8th house is about. It's right after 7th house, which is around one-to-one relationships and contacts. And a lot of you are stepping out of a period that was quite volatile, that was quite turbulent. If you have Scorpio placements, that means you had a Uranus opposition. So you could have had shakeups within your relationships or just shakeups within your life that called upon a new version of self. I will say it will not be as turbulent and as chaotic as what it is that you've been experiencing. And now that your relationships have been shaken up, now that you or your partner have gone through changes, now there could be a focus around really wanting to radicalize or revolutionize your intimacy, which of course can be physical, but also emotional and spiritual. Like the energy of 8th house is the we. 7th house is you and I. 8th house is the we, what it is that we create as an entity. And, I'm talking to a lot of Scorpios. Y'all like to go deep. And so with the energy of Uranus here, there could absolutely be a focus around wanting to try different things in order to promote more closeness, more depth, wanting to allow more sides of your soul to be acknowledged or to be seen, or to allow different like weird desires of yours to be communicated about. There just could be an energy around embracing the authenticity and the trueness of you and wanting your partner to really see all that you are. And that could absolutely show up in physical ways as well, wanting to try new things or communicate on different desires. That can be a focus at this time. Now, if you're not in a relationship, this can be a time of spontaneous get-togethers or revelations around how it is that you merge with others physically, as well as just around how it is that you view intimacy altogether. If there's any like fears around allowing yourself to be like really heard and deeply felt, like to a soul level with 8th house energy by another individual. If there's psychological hangups, the energy of Uranus could be you having certain breakthroughs or awakenings around what you've built around you in order to keep you safe, and really wanting to find a different perspective in order to allow more closeness or more intimacy altogether. And even if it doesn't have to do with closeness or intimacy, there could be just certain breakthroughs, ahas around your shadow work or around the secrets embedded deep within your soul. You could just have an aha moment where you see things clearly. You could have some experiences over the course of the next 8 years or so that really allow you to view your trauma in a different way, view your pain in a different way, or really allow yourself to break free from any fears that have kept you inhibited. 8th house is the territory of death. So some of you could have an aha around grief or around loss that, of course, doesn't take the pain away or the fear completely away, but it could give you a new lease on life or a new perspective. And with 8th house, it also governs money that comes to you from unearned means. And in the case of Uranus, unexpected means. You could receive settlements from old jobs we used to work at, or settlements from insurance companies, or a random royalty check, or something like this. Money could come to you in very random ways. And it's not to say that that's something to be like steadily relied on. The very nature of Uranus is that it's unsteady. So just know that there can be some random checks in the mail or some random money that comes your way, but also random losses as well, particularly as it relates to your partner's income. There could be some instability, ups and downs. Absolutely. And keep in mind, I do say ups and downs. It doesn't indicate decline, but there just could be volatility around, your partner gets sued and that affects you in some way. Not putting that out there, but sometimes there could just be something random that happens to your partner that affects your joint finances. Your partner could get a raise. There's some sort of shakeup there. There could just be shakeups as it relates to your partner's income. There could also be shakeups as it relates to debt. Random debt or a random event that puts you into debt, or even like randomly finding some sort of loophole that clears you of your debt in some way. 8th house is also taxes. So with the energy of Uranus, random tax return that you were not expecting, but also random tax bill that you were not expecting. Do you get the nature of Uranus? It's very random. It's very erratic. It's very unexpected. And that can be essentially impacting, yes, the money that comes to you from others, but also matters of the occult, matters of your fears, matters of your psyche, matters of your intimacy. If Uranus in Gemini will make its way through your 9th house, this message is for you. You may be a Libra sun, you may be a Libra rising, you may just have some Gemini degrees within your 9th house, but wherever it is that you fall within those categories, expect shakeups as it relates to your travel, as it relates to your academia, and as it relates to your spirituality and your overall worldview. That's what I think of when I think of 9th house. It's very much around meaning and our search for truth, whether that is by way of university or traveling abroad or going to church or really anything where we're looking for that something more, to connect to something that is bigger than ourselves. And with the energy of Uranus, you could absolutely experience a lot of random developments in these territories. You could have random downloads around your spiritual practices and processes. And yes, this can be a time that you connect to spontaneously, often gurus and mentors who may help with your spiritual journey, but ultimately it is your spiritual journey to carve, especially with Uranus here. It tends to be an energy that you actually rebel against things that are very dogmatic or things that are very traditional or expected. So some of you could even break away from a religion that you're like, this doesn't align with me. Like, I want to build my own way or my own relationship to God or what have you. You could also experience more rebellion as it relates to your academic program if you are in one, around this is what's being taught and that is not true. There could be like a rebellious energy there, or maybe even protesting on campus or something like this, like some sort of rebellion that is integrated within your academic career. Now, some of you could just rebel on the idea of college altogether. Like maybe that's what's being expected of you and you're just like, that's not what's necessarily wanted for my path. Some of you can absolutely get into some sort of spiritual modality or, astrology or something like this. Uranus is a planet that is very associated with astrology, and 9th house is a house that is also associated with astrology. So a lot of you could get more into astrology, or other modalities can absolutely be supported here, but had to mention the astrology component of it. And there could just be random interests that just take over. That's the nature of Uranus. It just comes in where it's like, one day you wake up and you're like, what's my human design chart? Or you're walking through a bookstore and you see one that intrigues you and all of a sudden you're super into tarot or what have you. There just could be random interests that take over and maybe even leave just as quickly. The energy of Uranus, sometimes it's very erratic. It comes in and we're into it and then it comes out. But ultimately, your experiences at this time are to build a sense of meaning and truth with the world at large that feels very true to you, and to rebel against any religious programming or dogma that does not align with the unique soul that you are. You could have random opportunities to travel at this time. Uranus can bring spontaneity and things that are unexpected. So some of you could get opportunities to go on retreats or to even lecture in other countries. You know, if you work in a ninth house field, you work in publishing, you are a speaker, you are a professor of some sort, things could be on and popping at this time. There could be random opportunities to guest lecture or random virality as it relates to your books. That can absolutely be something that comes through. Or some of you could download a random idea for a book or start researching into something that will eventually become a book. There can be themes like that also woven into the next 8 years that you will experience. Say yes to travel, say yes to life, say yes to learning from unique, eclectic individuals with Uranus in the ninth house. Some of you could absolutely, like I highlighted, call in a mentor, but it's really important that it's a mentor who allows you the space to be yourself, not someone who wants you to be a follower of theirs or anything like that. Like someone who emboldens your unique talents and perspectives and encourages you in becoming the best that you can be. And even if you have no interest in the publishing fields and astrology, these ninth house themes, with Uranus in the ninth house, it tends to be a time that there is a revolutionizing around just how you view the world altogether. And some of you could really be rethinking what you've been taught from a big picture perspective and wanting to move in a direction that feels very true to you. You know, it's worth saying that this is the house that comes right before the 10th house, which is around, you know, our reputation and our career. So sometimes there's an energy around, for me to give the public what I'm here to give it, for me to step into my life calling, I have to find my why. And Uranus energy is a great time to be open to random stimuli and experiences and voices that help carve your why. And again, ultimately, it's your why, and Uranus energy really pushes against anyone who's trying to brainwash you or tell you who to be or tell you what to think. But there's an energy around the experiences that you're having during this time could really be instrumental in really stepping into your life calling, like really being clear on who it is that you are and what it is that you believe, so that you are clear on the impact that you want to leave for other humans. Like Uranus energy is very associated with themes like that. And that could be something that you experience at this time. I do want to mention, if you are a Libra sun, if you are a Libra rising, you will have a Uranus trine at some point over the next 8 years, which is a harmonious flow of energy. So these changes may not be so disruptive. It just could be like awakenings, aha moments, really. Uranus in an air sign, okay? Fellow air sign, aha moments, seeing things differently, having very engaging, stimulating conversations. I definitely think you're going to go through a period where you're not wanting to be around people who are shallow minded. You're wanting to have big conversations and really build a very beautiful life. And in Uranian style, a life that is very true to you. Isn't that fun? I love it. I got that little astronaut when I was in Ojai. Felt very Uranus coded. If you are a Virgo rising, a Virgo sun, or you have Gemini degrees within your 10th house, this is your reading, and this is your Uranus in Gemini story. This is impacting the territory of your chart that is the most public. It is around career. It is around reputation, public persona. This essentially denotes that this is the highest territory of the sky on that fateful day that you were born. Or if you are a Virgo sun, it indicates in solar houses, if we drag your sun to the first house, this is at the top of the chart. And top of the chart represents how it is that we rise up to meet the public. You know, if something's directly above us, everybody can see it regardless of where they are. So it sort of represents the aspects of ourselves that everybody could see. And so it has a lot to do as it relates to our public work within this life. And you've got some shakeups in this territory. And it's worth noting now the changes that Uranus and Gemini are going to bring are going to be really, truly, and deeply impacting you and impacting your chart because Uranus is transiting an angular house. And if you are a Virgo, this indicates that you will have a harsh Uranus transit at some point from now to 2033. And having Uranus in an angular house, having a harsh Uranus transit indicates you are changing. And based on the territory it's going through, your public persona is changing. Your reputation is changing. Uranus energy really gives this restlessness within and this refusal to conform or refusal to perform. So if there have been certain things that you felt pressured to do within work, you've been pressured to dress in a certain way or speak about certain topics and not speak about others, Uranus energy could really dial up that restlessness at this time, where maybe before you were able to just, sit there and look pretty if your boss didn't want you to speak up about something, or if it's not considered industry standard for you to talk on a certain matter. Like if that's been alive already in your experience, expect Uranus energy to really make your patience wear thin. Like you really are going to find that it's very hard to conform and to perform, to be a mouthpiece for what your boss wants you to say, to speak out about things that other people want you to speak out about, or have certain opinions that other people want you to have. Like you could definitely find with Uranus energy, you are not wanting to conform to anyone, even if it does impact your career. There could just be an energy around, I've got to be true to myself. And listen, I'm not saying that all of you need to, bring in big signs to the workplace and start rebelling against your boss, or, dress in tube tops to rebel against, office culture. I think a lot of the professional norms are silly, but I'm not saying that you necessarily need to lean into the Uranus energy and intentionally create chaos. But it is a powerful time to really contemplate, what is my why? What do I want to be my legacy? Do I want to be my legacy just conforming to this? Like some of you, there might be something shady going on with your boss or with your industry at large. In Uranus energy, some of you could whistleblow. Some of you could want to be a leader in some way around gathering people together, starting a union, protesting and rebelling against things, even if your career does take a hit. But it's just really important during this time that you are very clear on your why. Some of you could step down from a position if you feel like you are having to conform. You are having to just be a puppet of the company or of the industry. Some of you could just really have awakenings at this time where you're like, this is not me. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. I don't want this to be my legacy. And so some of you could shift gears to step into something where you're like, yes, this is what I want to be my legacy. This is where I want to make a difference. This is where I want to, rebel against society at large. A lot of you could step into advocacy work at this time. You could really want your humanitarian values to be threaded in your career and what people know of you. Some of you can experience that your career is being shaken up based on technology. Uranus energy is very associated with technology. So maybe technology is shaking up how your industry runs, and maybe that's creating certain changes for you. Some of you could absolutely experience pivots within career at this time. And some of that might be around the workplace conditions, or this new technology came out and it's making our industry shift in this particular way. And I always say with Uranus energy, the way that we navigate this transit with as much ease as possible is really being willing to pivot and change. And I know I'm talking to a lot of Virgos who like a plan, and it's just going to be important to stay light on your feet and to see where it is that you can shift and really where it is that you can even innovate. Because for some of you, you could be a leader in something that helps change the world. No pressure. Or you could radicalize something, you could innovate something, and it takes that different perspective. It takes being willing to be open to changes outside of the path that you were on. Gemini is a Mercury sign. You are, most of you anyway, are a Mercury sign as well. So there could be changes around what you are talking about, what you are communicating about, what you are marketing about. There could be an energy where you're not wanting to do things if they are not fun even. Of course, Gemini is very nuanced as a sign, but it is a playful, curious energy. So if you feel like your job is very monotonous, you do the same thing every single day, you're not learning anything, or you just feel like you have to be someone that you're not, and you're not able to do what you want to do, Uranus energy could really make you want to shake things up around, I want to have fun in my career. I want to talk about what I want to talk about. I want to do what I want to do, even if that means a pay cut, because it's important to say, in terms of transits to the 10th house, it's not to say just this transit alone that you're moving into this period of just like utter success within the next 8 years. Yes, some of you, especially if you're in the Uranus industry, science, technology, astrology, innovation, startups, some of you can go through certain shifts within careers. If you've wanted to get into any of those industries, this can be a great time to start. But the very nature of Uranus is that it is very volatile and erratic. So some of you could have certain shifts where it's like, I was working at this startup and then that didn't work and then went to the next one and that folded, or like something like this. There could be certain shifts like that. Or if you are in the limelight, if you are seen, there could be random shifts within public opinion or ups and downs. And again, you cannot please everyone. So with Uranus energy, you better make sure you're pleasing yourself, that you are speaking out around what it is that you want to speak about, that you're building the career that you want to build. Because if you build it based on what will make other people like you, it will feel hollow, it will feel empty, and it will be destined to fail. And so Uranus energy, it's going to be important for you to let go of this notion that everybody is going to adore you or like everything that you create, and just make sure that you like what you create or like what it is that you contribute to the world at large. If Uranus in Gemini will make its way through your 11th house, this message and this reading is for you. You may be a Leo rising, you may be a Leo sun if we consider solar houses for this transit, or you may have Gemini degrees within your 11th house. But wherever it is that you fall within those categories, expect shakeups around your friendships, around your communities, and around your hopes and dreams altogether. Let's get into this. So with Uranus moving out of angular house, I want to start there. You may have since 2018 experienced some ups and downs or some pivots or some exciting awakenings or develops around career. And when Uranus moves out of an angular house, and for some of you, when Uranus is no longer making a harsh aspect to your Leo placements, it gets a little bit less chaotic and turbulent and volatile. So that's good news that I have to share with you. And now that there's been certain shakeups around career or around your public work, in a sense, or your reputation, now there is a focus around ensuring that your friendship groups are a representation of who it is that you are, and your authenticity, and how it is that you are true to yourself. You can find at this period that you are utterly disinterested in spending time with people just for the sake of spending time with people. Like there could be an energy where if you have any friends where it's like, we get brunch because that's what we do, or I have this friend because it's someone to go out to dinner with. There could just be an energy around, listen, just because society is telling me that it's important to have a friendship group or have this particular friend doesn't mean that I need to. And again, connection is what makes life worth living. And I was actually reading this book on the blue zones, and it was saying that one of the markers for a healthy, long life is having friends, is having a social circle, or at least 5 people whose company you genuinely admire. But it's just ensuring that you do that from the right perspective around not just spending time with people for the sake of spending time with people, spending time with people who excite you, who exhilarate you, who feel like-minded, where you're able to have exciting conversations, where you feel more stimulated within their presence, where you feel like you could be yourself within their presence. Like really the connections that you could be breaking away from are the connections where you feel like you have to be very normal and be very nice and talk about the weather. It's like with the energy of Uranus, you want to talk about aliens with your friends. You want to talk about humanitarian values and your mission statement altogether. Like you could just really want to be around people who are very unique and eclectic and themselves, because those are the sort of people that give us permission to be fully authentic and unique and eclectic. And so you can find that you're drawn to individuals who go against the grain in life. You could be drawn to individuals who are a bit rebellious, who do things differently, who are not on society's expected timeline, who don't dress in typical or normal ways. You can find that you're really excited about being around people who are very true to themselves, whatever that may be, and are uninterested in just conforming to what is expected. And this could be all in response to the shifts that you could have had or the awakenings you could have had having that Uranus transit, where it's like, now that I've had this aha moment, now that I have this fresh perspective, I also want to be around people who are on the same wavelength, on the same frequency. And if you feel like you don't have those individuals, this is the time to find them, my love. Go to clubs of your unique, weird, niche interests. Find different online communities. Communicate to different communities. Listen, I'm talking to a lot of Leos. You all are born to shine, born to be seen, born to create. So maybe this is getting more involved around open mic nights if you are a poet, or starting to create content around some sort of interest of yours in order to attract the people that you want to you. You know, build it and they will come, right? Like a lot of you are ruled by the sun. The sun just shines and it draws the right planets to it. And the more that you are radically yourself and honest about who you are, the more you are going to draw in individuals who are also radically honest about who it is that they are. And there really is an energy around not wanting to conform. This could also show up within your professional community. 11th house is associated with colleagues, or also known as friends who help us. In that it's right by the 10th house, right? So it's people who kind of help us reach our notoriety in some way. But you could find, like, I don't want to go to these happy hours just in order to get ahead. Like, you could be utterly uninterested in workplace politics or just buttering up people in order to get what you want. Like with the energy of Uranus, you're like, can we just be real? Can we just be honest? And you're wanting to be around other people who are revolutionaries, who do things differently, who see the future similarly. So with Uranus in 11th house, you're less interested in complying with what is expected of you. You know, some of you over the course of the next 8 years may step into some very significant humanitarian work. Some of you could feel genuinely inspired to want to change the world, to make the world a better place. Some of you could have some very future forward ideas. You could have a very powerful why, a very powerful mission statement. Because yes, 11th house could be our followers and our fortune altogether, but the energy of Uranus really electrifies this sector around really wanting to, yes, maybe have an impact and have followers, but for a reason. Like with the Uranus energy, wanting to change the world, wanting to uplift people, excite people. You know, if that overwhelms you, thinking about how am I going to solve all of life's major issues, it's not saying that you need to solve all of them, but be open over the course of the next 8 years for inspired ideas, like downloads of books that you want to write and social media content that you want to share, or initiatives that you want to integrate within your workplace that can help make the world a better place. Like the energy with Uranus here, it's important to really see where it is that you can make a difference, leave an impact, and believe in change. Believe in change. I know a lot of people at a time such as this feel hopeless. With Uranus in 11th house, you may feel genuinely inspired to want to make a difference, to want to band people together, to want to communicate on certain themes in order to help. You know, 11th house within the chart, it governs our future and also humanity's future. So with the energy of Uranus 11th house, you could just have inspired ideas of changes that you want to see within the future. And knowing that even the small actions that you do can help bring humanity towards that, or even like banding people together, inspiring people. With Uranus and Gemini, I just feel like some of you may have certain skills or certain messages or a certain way of communicating that can raise people's frequency in order to do their life's work. You know, that's something that I strive to do on every single video and every single TikTok video. Someone could look at that and think, okay, you're not helping with the world. You just make astrology videos and TikTok videos. But I genuinely go into this with the intention around if these videos can uplift, if they can inspire, if they can motivate individuals to arise to their calling, I believe that is making the world a better place. And I believe that an environmentalist could stumble upon my content and feel so inspired to do their environmental work, or somebody who's really passionate about civic issues can engage with my content and feel inspired to do that work. I think we all have particular gifts in this lifetime. And with Uranus and Gemini, you may receive random ahas, downloads, or even interests that you go into that help make a difference at large. And if you've already built a following, if you already have some sort of impact, the energy of Uranus, you could go through some sort of shift. You could find that you're doing things that go against the grain, that are unpopular in order to be fully true to yourself. a lot of you could go through changes as it relates to what you want for your future. You could have been on a certain path. And with Uranus here, it's like, now I see my future in an entirely different direction. I thought it was going to be this, and now I'm going in this direction. And this also could show up around you are choosing to set off on a very unique path. In some way, you are going against the grain. You're seeing what your friends or your social circle is doing, and you're choosing a different path for your life, which is an unexplored path and thus a risky path, but it's your path to carve. And that's the main nudge with Uranus in 11th house, is to carve your own path and to lead and inspire others as you do so. If Uranus in Gemini will impact your 12th house of your astrological natal chart, this message and this reading is for you. You may be a Cancer rising, if we consider actual houses, a Cancer sun, if we consider solar houses, and you may have Gemini degrees within your 12th house, even if you are not a Cancer rising. But wherever it is that you fall in those categories, here's what you can anticipate for the next 8 years. And I say anticipate very loosely because the very nature of Uranus is that it's about the unpredictable. It's about the unexpected. But here are some themes of where you can expect some shakeups. But the very nature of Uranus, it might still catch you by surprise, even being supported with understanding these themes. So the arena of the 12th house. The 12th house is the final house of the zodiac. And so in 2033, Uranus will enter Cancer, which is a once-in-a-lifetime transit. Only happens once every 84 years. So we only really get to experience this once in our life if we get to experience it. And that's a transit that's beginning for you in about 8 years' time from the time of filming this reading. And it's significant because that's a lot about self. It's a lot about identity. You could really break away from identities that no longer align with you and really step into who it is that you are authentically. And knowing that that's on the horizon, Uranus in 12th house is around spontaneous releases of what is not you. Like if Uranus in the first house is fully crystallizing or experimenting with who you are, Uranus in the 12th house is about releasing who it is that you are not. And what I mean by that is that 12th house is our subconscious processing. It's what's beneath the surface. And with Uranus energy, you could have spontaneous ahas around recognizing how you see the world based on stories that you have internalizing, stories that you have ingrained into yourself. You know, I always think about 12th house being right by the first house. It's the hidden house. So 12th house can be quite murky and confusing, honestly, as a house, but it's right by the first house, which is what's very public about us, our identity, how we look like. And even though the 12th house is hidden, it directly impacts how it is that we view the world, how the world views us. So even the messages that are not visible to us beneath the surface can deeply impact how it is that we look out at the world, how we look at ourselves. And Uranus in the 12th house, some of you could have some unusual experiences that give you random bursts of clarity around, gosh, why am I such a hater on myself? Or gosh, why do I block myself from anything that could potentially be empowering? Some of you could even do some sort of hypnotherapy or EMDR or something else that goes fundamentally beneath the surface in order to give you a new lease on life, in a sense. And you really want to free yourself. You want to liberate yourself. You know, 12th house is a territory that is associated with places that we are not free, in a sense. And I'm not saying that you are not literally free, but like 12th house governs asylums, prisons. I'm not saying you're going to go to one of those places, but it's places where we are a bit stuck. And with Uranus and Gemini, it's like, where am I ensnaring myself? Where am I ensnaring myself? And with Uranus energy, is there a new perspective? Is there a new lease on life? Is there a new narrative? Is there a new positive belief that I can ingrain in order to get unstuck? Is there a perspective shift that can change my life? You know, if we change our mind, we change our life. And this could be a time that you fundamentally do some deep inner work in order to support your evolution. This could be a really powerful time to get into meditation. Some of you could receive random downloads or become a channel in some way where you just get a random idea that comes through, or a random nudge, or even I'm seeing for some of you, stepping into premonition, in a sense, having dreams that kind of foretell what the future can hold. And again, I'm not saying all of you need to be open to that, but some of you very well may experience random lightning bolts of psychic clarity coming in. You also can be very dialed in with the collective at this time. You know, 12th house is also the collective subconscious. And with Uranus, random flashes of insight. Like even if you are out on a hike, or just driving in your car and you're not on your phone, you're not listening to news, you may suddenly feel something. Keep in mind, I'm talking to a lot of Cancers. You all are very responsive and you could really feel into things, but you could feel some type of way or just have some utter clarity. Even though you don't know the news, you could feel like, oh, something just happened. Something just occurred. I can feel it. And when we consider that, you could also be very plugged into what humanity needs or what the collective needs from you personally. Like there could be an energy around really being in touch with people's like pain, altogether collective humanitarian pain, and really being plugged into where it is that you want to make a difference. You know, some of you are embracing your inner mad scientists in a sense. 12th house is around isolation and solitude. So some of you are wanting to be so true to yourself that you are willing to break away from social groups or social norms that don't align for you. You would more want to just be in your own energy and doing your own thing than trying to fit in with others. Some of you could isolate yourself in order to learn something new, to research into something. That could be a way that this is showing up for you. And really, when it comes to this transit that you are moving into, again, it is preparing you for this brand new story, this brand new cycle that you will experience once in your lifetime. And so with the energy of Uranus in the 12th house, there's an energy around what's sort of like psychic sludge or subconscious sludge I don't want to take with me into this very like freeing and liberating transit that's on the horizon. Like if there are certain ideals that have been programmed into me or certain normalcy that's been programmed into me, how can I disrupt? How can I innovate? And it's knowing that this particular transit, it's not to say that necessarily like outer elements of your life are changing, but inner elements of your life are changing. Your spiritual gifts might be changing. Your dreams might be changing. This could be a time that you do, to be completely real with you, you may struggle with your sleep a bit over the course of the next 8 years. You know, eighth house, Uranus energy could be electric. So you could feel like you're trying to sleep, but your mind is just receiving random downloads or all sorts of things. And also on the caution side of this transit, I would say be mindful of spontaneous desires to want to escape reality or numb or use substances in order to numb if you do feel this kind of like electric influence sometimes, and not always, but like with Uranus energy, it tends to really activate our brain. You know, it is considered by some astrologers' definition the higher octave of Mercury, the planet of mind. And you could find that there may be a desire to turn to things in order to like numb your mind or to like go to sleep or something like this. Again, that is not a guarantee with Uranus in 12th house, just could be something that you experience. But altogether, even though it may not be showing up in these outer ways, it's like when your soul changes, you change. And this is a time that you are open to soul growth. And it's not necessarily in this very like spiritual way, like a Neptune would be with Uranus energy. It's more so around this path is my own. When my soul came here, my work is to build a life that is fully myself. I don't want to be at the end of my life and realize that I lived for other people's approval or lived for other people's perspective. So there is an energy where you are really liberating yourself from any internalized story that is not yours and really striving to build an authentic, genuine life from the inside out. So my loves, Uranus in Gemini from 2025 to 2033 is going to be an incredibly stimulating, surprising transit that will revolutionize how it is that we communicate to one another, that will shake up fundamentally how our minds work within society, and really shift our thinking in new directions, future forward directions, especially when we consider this happening concurrently with Pluto in Aquarius. Again, let's all hold the vision. Our minds are powerful. Don't forget that with Uranus and Gemini. Let's all hold the vision for these shifts, these innovations, these disruptions to be in alignment with humanity's greatest good. May we utilize this transit to solve different problems that plague humanity. May we be open to different perspectives in order to move towards a more humane, a more open-minded society and a more accepting world. So let me know how it is that you are working with this energy of Uranus. Let me know where it's transiting within your chart and how are you striving to move into this electric, exhilarating current of electricity, courtesy of Uranus. I want to let you know if this is your first time stopping by my cosmic corner of the internet. Hello. So happy to spend some time with you talking about a planet as Exciting as Uranus at that. I want to let you know I have all sorts of content here on the channel, all signs forecasts for other major transits that we are experiencing, a weekly horoscope forecast called Magic Monday that is also available as a podcast. Search Magic Monday anywhere that you listen to podcasts for a weekly look at the sky of the week and how it is that you can co-create with the cosmos in order to experience more magic within your universe. So I'd love to see you around on the channel. I can also be found on Instagram. My @ is at Haley Comet Astrology. I'm also available on TikTok. We'll see what unique social media platforms spring up during Uranus and Gemini, but at the time of filming, that's where I can be found. But until we meet again, drink lots of water and stay cosmic.